Translated by Chinyu, edited by Peter. The M bias strip tells us that life and death are not opposites. Life is death, and death is life. There is death in life, and life in death. The Yellow Emperor's Book of the Hidden Talisman said, "Life is the root of death, and death is the root of life." Babies cry when they are born. Why do they cry? Because life is bitter. How do you know that life is bitter? This is like a chick in an egg that has been hatched for 21 days, pecking at the shell. Although it does not know how thick the eggshell is, whether it can be pecked through, or whether there is a vast world outside the eggshell, it must peck. That is its instinct. What is instinct? Instinct is a kind of innate performance that biosystems can make without learning, such as chickens and eggshells pecking at them, bees making honey, migratory birds migrating with the seasons, mice digging holes, roosters crowing, etc. Babies cry as soon as they are born, and they know how to suck a breast. This is also an instinct. Everything has an instinct. If they do not have an instinct, everything will perish. So where did the instinct come from? This involves the origin of life. Please see the chapter of life. All things on earth are created by higher life, and instincts are embedded in the structure and order of life. The purpose of this chapter is to talk about life and death. Why do we say, life is death and death is life? To understand the true meaning of life and death, we must proceed from the following 3 points. First, do people have past lives? First of all, let me reprint the full text of an article compiled by Wang Jiankong and Li Liming and published in Reader magazine. Unbelievable, reborn girl. In 1926, a lovely little girl was born in Delhi, India. Her name was Shani Devi. When she was just born, there was nothing abnormal about her at all. But when she was 7 years old, little Shani suddenly said to her mother inexplicably, "Mom, I used to live in the city of Mathura." She also enthusiastically told her mother about Mathura and the situation at her home then. Later, Shanti mentioned this matter several more times. The parents were very worried when they saw their 7-year-old daughter talking about something irrelevant, so they took her to see a doctor. The doctor was puzzled after hearing Shanti's narration. "It's really strange. This child has no symptoms of mental abnormalities at all. How could she say these unbelievable things? Let's observe her for a while." However, at the age of 9, Shanti still did not forget about her living in Mathura. "Mom, did I mention that I lived in Mathura before? I got married there and gave birth to 3 children. My name was Luchi when I lived in Mathura." Shanti also told her mother the names and characteristics of the 3 children. The parents became more and more anxious after listening to their daughter's intoxicated chatter, thinking that the child's condition was probably getting worse. And they often wiped away their tears in secret. One day, a visitor came to see Shanti's mother. As soon as Shanti saw that person, she suddenly called out, "Mom, this person is my former husband's cousin. He also lives in Mathura." The guest was surprised when he heard Shanti's words and said, "Your daughter is right. I used to live in Mathura." But how did she know about it? After the incident spread, it attracted the attention of the Indian government, and a special investigation committee was formed. The committee brought Shani to Mathura for on-the-spot investigation. Shanti has never left Delhi since her birth. But as soon as she arrived in Mathura, she was able to warmly greet the local people who came to meet her in the Mathura dialect, as if she had met a long-lost friend. When she came to the door of a house, she stopped suddenly and said to others, "This is the house I used to live in." She walked in the door, pointed to an old man, and said, "He is just the father of my former husband." Then, she recognized her 2 children, and she also told people about her previous life in Mathura in detail, her association with her friends, the nearby landscape, and the school she was in at that time. The local people were very surprised when they heard her narration. What she said was completely correct, which was exactly the situation at that time. So little Shanti is the one who was reborn. The people who came to investigate this issue had to come to this conclusion. In India, the ancient Buddhist country, there are really many reborn people. Swarata Misho is one of them. One day, when he was traveling by bicycle, he pointed to a house he had never been to and said that he had lived here for a period and talked as if he just thought of it. He also talked about the past. This surprised the accompanying family members. They ran into the village to inquire, and what Swarata said was exactly what happened here decades ago. It is said that Svolrada has been resurrected 3 times. There was also a young man in India named Gaspiel. He just died shortly. On the day a person named Yaki died in a village 35 kilometers away, Gaspier suddenly woke up in the coffin placed in his home. When people pulled him out of the coffin, to their surprise, Gaspiel knew the appearance of Yaki, who was far away in a foreign land, and all the things that happened in that village. There are many examples of past lives recorded in ancient and modern Chinese and foreign books. We can't completely believe what they say, but in the face of the facts, we can't deny everything. We can deny that the statement of Tang Monk in Journey to the West is the reincarnation of Jean Chanzi, but we cannot but believe in the theory of the reincarnated soul boy of the Tibetan Panchen Lama in Tibet. For example, Wendu Gongbao Kaidan, the reincarnated soul boy of the ninth Panchen Lama Sangdang Kyuji Nyama, was able to accurately select the utensils used by the previous Panchen Lama from other identical objects, and even more surprisingly, he was able to call out the name of Gajan Pong, who had sung for the Panchen Lama, from the crowd. Before that, the two had never met. Gongbao Kaidan was not discovered by accident. A pill jumped out of the gold bottle during the shaking. They opened it, and it was Wendu Gongbao Kaidan's name on it. Life and death are only images. There is neither life nor death in life. Xiefeng. Translated by Qin Yu. Edited by Peter. The M. Bias strip tells us that life and death are not opposites. Life is death, and death is life. There is death in life, and life in death. The Yellow Emperor's Book of the Hidden Talisman said, "Life is the root of death, and death is the root of life." Babies cry when they are born. Why do they cry? Because life is bitter. How do you know that life is bitter? This is like a chick in an egg that has been hatched for 21 days, pecking at the shell. Although it does not know how thick the eggshell is, whether it can be pecked through, or whether there is a vast world outside the eggshell, it must peck. That is its instinct. What is instinct? Instinct is a kind of innate performance that biosims can make without learning, such as chickens and eggshells pecking at them, bees making honey, migratory birds migrating with the seasons, mice digging holes, roosters crowing, etc. Babies cry as soon as they are born, and they know how to suck a breast. This is also an instinct. Everything has an instinct. If they do not have an instinct, everything will perish. So where did the instinct come from? This involves the origin of life. Please see the chapter of life. All things on earth are created by higher life, and instincts are embedded in the structure and order of life. The purpose of this chapter is to talk about life and death. Why do we say, life is death and death is life? To understand the true meaning of life and death, we must proceed from the following 3 points. First, do people have past lives? First of all, let me reprint the full text of an article compiled by Wang Jiankong and Li Liming and published in Reader magazine. Unbelievable, reborn girl. In 1926, a lovely little girl was born in Delhi, India. Her name was Shani Devi. When she was just born, there was nothing abnormal about her at all. But when she was 7 years old, little Shani suddenly said to her mother inexplicably, "Mom, I used to live in the city of Mathura." She also enthusiastically told her mother about Mathura and the situation at her home then. Later, Shanti mentioned this matter several more times. The parents were very worried when they saw their 7-year-old daughter talking about something irrelevant, so they took her to see a doctor. The doctor was puzzled after hearing Shanti's narration. "It's really strange. This child has no symptoms of mental abnormalities at all. How could she say these unbelievable things? Let's observe her for a while." However, at the age of 9, Shanti still did not forget about her living in Mathura. "Mom, did I mention that I lived in Mathura before? I got married there and gave birth to 3 children. My name was Luchi when I lived in Mathura." Shanti also told her mother the names and characteristics of the 3 children. The parents became more and more anxious after listening to their daughter's intoxicated chatter, thinking that the child's condition was probably getting worse. And they often wiped away their tears in secret. One day, a visitor came to see Shanti's mother. As soon as Shanti saw that person, she suddenly called out, "Mom, this person is my former husband's cousin. He also lives in Mathura." The guest was surprised when he heard Shanti's words and said, "Your daughter is right. I used to live in Mathura. But how did she know about it? After the incident spread, it attracted the attention of the Indian government, and a special investigation committee was formed. The committee brought Shanti to Mathura for on-the-spot investigation. Shanti has never left Delhi since her birth. But as soon as she arrived in Mathura, she was able to warmly greet the local people who came to meet her in the Mathura dialect, as if she had met a long-lost friend. When she came to the door of a house, she stopped suddenly and said to others, "This is the house I used to live in." She walked in the door, pointed to an old man, and said, "He is just the father of my former husband." Then, she recognized her two children, and she also told people about her previous life in Mathura in detail, her association with her friends, the nearby landscape, and the school she was in at that time. The local people were very surprised when they heard her narration. What she said was completely correct, which was exactly the situation at that time. So little Shanti is the one who was reborn. The people who came to investigate this issue had to come to this conclusion. In India, the ancient Buddhist country, there are really many reborn people. Swarata Misho is one of them. One day, when he was traveling by bicycle, he pointed to a house he had never been to and said that he had lived here for a period and talked as if he just thought of it. He also talked about the past. This surprised the accompanying family members. They ran into the village to inquire, and what Svolrata said was exactly what happened here decades ago. It is said that Svolrata has been resurrected 3 times. There was also a young man in India named Gaspiel. He just died shortly. On the day a person named Yaki died in a village 35 kilometers away, Gaspier suddenly woke up in the coffin placed in his home. When people pulled him out of the coffin, to their surprise, Gaspiel knew the appearance of Yaki, who was far away in a foreign land, and all the things that happened in that village. There are many examples of past lives recorded in ancient and modern Chinese and foreign books. We can't completely believe what they say, but in the face of the facts, we can't deny everything. We can deny that the statement of Tang Monk in Journey to the West is the reincarnation of Jean Chanzi, but we cannot but believe in the theory of the reincarnated soul boy of the Tibetan Panchen Lama in Tibet. For example, Wendu Gongbao Kaidan, the reincarnated soul boy of the ninth Panchen Lama Sangdang Kyuji Nyama, was able to accurately select the utensils used by the previous Panchen Lama from other identical objects, and even more surprisingly, he was able to call out the name of Gajan Pong, who had sung for the Panchen Lama, from the crowd. Before that, the two had never met. Gongbao Kaidan was not discovered by accident. A pill jumped out of the gold bottle during the shaking. They opened it, and it was Wendu Gongbao Kaidan's name on it. A pill jumped out of the gold bottle during the shaking. They opened it, and it was Wendu Gongbao Kaidan's name on it. In fact, anyone who was a human being in the last life and reincarnated as a human in the next life will definitely have a feeling of déjà vu about a place suddenly and dimly in your life. In some places, although you have never been there, once you arrive, they must be reflected in your subconsciousness. You don't know what's going on, you just feel as if you have been here before. Of course, if you were an animal in your previous life, you will not have this kind of memory, but you must have a special love for a certain animal, and you are particularly disgusted or afraid of some animals. If you were a celestial in the 1,000-year world or the 10,000-year world, you will not have this kind of hazy memory, but you will definitely hate the selfishness of human society and subconsciously feel that you don't belong to this world. If you come from the Elysium world, you don't like meat by nature. Many wonderful hallucinations often appear in your mind, and you have an instinctive closeness to Buddhism. Second, do people really have an afterlife? It's hard for us to believe the hearsay of others, but we have to believe the theories and examples based on scientific research and clinical practice. There is an organization in this world called the International Association for Near-Death Studies, whose website is www.nderf.org. The results of this research organization show that people have an afterlife. Please feel free to contact them to discuss where people go after death. As living people, it is impossible for them to clearly know the scene after death. But for those who died but came back to life due to various reasons, it is true that some of them have experienced the scene after death. I myself started to explore the essence of life because of a fact that came into being 20 years ago. That is, no matter whether people in the world believe it or not, I am sure that life has an afterlife, and because of my continuous research and exploration, I discovered my past life and future life and made clear the purpose and significance of my birth. I passed through a happy darkness and saw the bright sunshine. I felt extremely happy. I was pushed into a black hole, and my mind still maintained infinite peace. Suddenly, a ray of light appeared in front of me. It was like a star in the sky at first, and then it turned into a sun at dawn in an instant. The radiant sun does not dazzle me. On the contrary, looking at this red sun, I feel unparalleled happiness. This is a beautiful place. I am very happy to come to this place. I feel delightful. I seem to have a nightmare. Countless ghosts came to claim my life, and a black tornado also hit me. I was frightened to death, and suddenly I was pulled back by a force. I watched the doctors tossing my dead body. Relatives and friends were mourning and crying, but I drifted farther and farther away from them. I was not sad. I felt extremely peaceful and felt that there was a beautiful place in the distance, and that is where I should be. The above are the memories and narrations of people who died and came back to life. Although they did not describe what kind of place they arrived at, it is certain that they still have a clear consciousness after death, and they also feel the beauty or dreadfulness of the place they are going to. It is certain that people will have an afterlife. There are only two kinds of eternal things in the universe. One is energy and the other is life. Without life, the existence of the universe is meaningless. Without energy, life will have nothing to attach itself to. Life is eternal. The so-called death is just the transformation of the life carrier. After the body of life dies, the spiritual body of life will enter another life carrier. After a dog dies, it may be reincarnated as a human being. Then, as a dog, it died, but it was born again as a human being. That is to say, life is the root of death, and death is the root of life. Where there is no death, there is no birth. Where there is no birth, there is no death. If the life of a dog does not die, then the life of a human cannot be born. To be born in the thousand-year world, the life in the mortal world must die, and life cannot step into two rivers at the same time. So, what is the meaning of in life there is death, in death there is life? We know that the aging of the body is gradual and unconscious. If we take photos of the life mileage from birth to death every day, by taking out two adjacent photos and comparing them, you cannot see the difference between the two at all. However, if you compare the photos with the ones which were taken after a period of time, such as 1 month or a year, you can clearly see the difference between them. That is to say, life is dying every moment. In life there is death. So, is there life in death? Yes, there is life in death. We already know that life is eternal, and people have an afterlife. So what factors will determine our afterlife? Is becoming a cow, a pig, a human, an immortal, or a Buddha in the next life accidental or inevitable? We know that every result has an early cause. It is impossible for anyone to suddenly become a president. A desert will not suddenly become an oasis, and a tadpole will not suddenly become a frog. The change is gradual, but the result may be sudden. For a person to reincarnate as a beast in the next life, he needs to continue to do evil, to squander and waste. He needs not only to spend all the savings in his life bank, but also overspend and leave a deficit. Otherwise, he will not be able to reincarnate as a beast in his next life. In the same way, if a person wants to become a Buddha, he must consciously and voluntarily reach the point of having nothing. Not only can he not own money, fame, property, beautiful women, family, status, etc., but he must also not be obsessed with a certain concept or have disputes with common people, and of course he must not kill or eat meat. If you want to go to the thousand-year world in your next life, your humanity must be perfect. So, are there any signs that indicate what kind of reincarnation criteria a person has reached at the time of his death? Yes, that are the different structures of neurons in the central nervous system of the brain at the time of death. Different structures have different colors. If a color scanner can be invented when a person dies, open his neurocranium and you can see the color of his brain with the scanner. If it is colorful, it can be concluded that his life has gone to the 10,000-year world. If it is purple, he has gone to the Elysium world. If it appears red or green or blue, he must have gone to the thousand-year world. If it appears white, he will be reincarnated as a human. If it shows a faint dark color, he will enter the animal world in the next life. If it is black, he will definitely go to the netherworld, or the frozen layer, or to the inflaming layer. In short, life and death are only images. Life has neither life nor death. Just like Seth said, death is not the end of life.
物种是进化来的吗？
Did life evolve from non-life? Xiefeng. Translation edited by Chinyo. Let's examine the validity of the evolutionist perspective, with Darwin as their pioneer, on the origin of species. Upon rejecting the Big Bang Theory and the notion of life arising accidentally from water, and upon analyzing the theory of evolution, we realize its shaky foundation. Without the birth of life, can evolution truly exist? Where do eggs come from without chickens? And without eggs, where does the chicken come from? Like how DNA formation depends on protein formation, without initial protein presence, DNA cannot form. Which came first, protein or DNA? The core tenets of the theory of evolution are as follows. Before evolution, there must be at least one or several lives. These one or several lives have evolved into a diverse array of life forms on Earth today. Organism evolution results from heredity, variation, and natural selection. Evolution follows the logic of natural selection, survival of the fittest, the law of the jungle, selecting the superior and eliminating the inferior. When a species cannot adapt to its environment, or when the environment does not support a species' survival, it evolves into another species. Due to brutal competition and survival of the fittest, the weak are naturally eliminated, leaving behind only the strong. This implies that low-energy forms fade while high-energy forms emerge. From these aspects, we can deduce the following. Earthworms, flies, turtles, dung beetles, cobras, dogs, humans, etc., originate from the same ancestor. Due to deteriorating ecological conditions, to ensure species reproduction, some dinosaurs evolved into humans, while others became lions and wolves. Since weaker organisms are naturally eliminated, all insects are weaker than birds and will evolve into birds or more powerful animals. Similarly, herbivores, weaker than carnivores, will evolve into carnivores for species reproduction. Carnivores, weaker than humans, will undoubtedly evolve into humans for survival. The final outcome of survival of the fittest is that all insects and animals will eventually evolve into humans. Regarding humans, the strong prey on the weak and the fittest survive. People survive by plundering and killing each other. Strong nations only remain invincible by eliminating the weak. All plundering and killing wars in history align with the theory of evolution. Acts of kindness toward other species appear cruel within one's own race. Conversely, cruelty toward other species is seen as kindness within one's own race. Whether it's burning, killing, looting, or cheating, any means to eliminate the weak and strengthen oneself are justified. Hence, Hitler's actions were 100% correct. Humans will continue to evolve. Eventually, wings will grow on their backs, eyes on the back of their heads, and they will breathe out fireworks and emit laser light from their eyes. Further analysis is unnecessary. Based on the 10 outcomes mentioned above, we can assess the viability of the theory of evolution. As we observe humans becoming smarter and more capable with each generation, we assume human evolution. However, this increased capability depends entirely on accumulated knowledge, and the essence of human life has remained unchanged since ancient times. Our genes, as human beings, have not changed. Our ancestors had 2 eyes, and we still do. Our blood was red then, and it remains red now. Our body structure has not gained or lost any organs or parts compared to our ancestors. If modern children could run like deer or zebras at birth, it would confirm human evolution. If monkeys and apes' brains are similar to humans in learning, memory, and thinking, we can deduce that humans evolved from monkeys. I will delve further into the topic of biological evolution in future chapters, particularly in the Greatest Creator chapter of Life Genuine. I encourage you to continue contemplating this issue.
盲区
The Blind Zone. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Chinyo. If we observe a blind person, we will find that he is constantly feeling his way forward. He cannot stride confidently on winding roads, nor can he see the potholes and stumbling stones ahead. We feel genuinely saddened by this. But what about those of us with sight? We eagerly unpack our treasures, investing everything in a marriage, only to face the painful experience of divorce a few years later. Why couldn't we foresee the outcome back then? We sincerely invest time in friendships, only to be betrayed, robbed of our savings, and even lose our spouses. Were we blind to the truth from the start? We wholeheartedly support someone's rise to power, only to discover him indifferent to our well-being and willing to trample us underfoot. Why were we blind to their true nature? We extend compassion to someone in need, sparing no effort to help him overcome one difficulty after another. However, once his wounds are healed, he turns around to bite us, not only stealing our wealth but also spreading rumors and slandering us, portraying us as worthless. Did our eyes truly perceive their nature from the outset? Parents toil tirelessly and pour their hearts into raising their children, hoping to have support in their old age. Yet, in an instant, their children die on the battlefield or under the wheel and fail to provide the expected support. Given such outcomes, how accurate was our foresight from the start? We labor tirelessly to raise our children, pouring our hearts and souls into their upbringing. Yet, in our old age, we find ourselves abandoned, without the familial support we hoped for. What was the purpose of our endeavors? Were we blind to the future? When we were at school, we studied certain subjects for getting food and sleep, but after graduation, we were unable to pursue the majors we studied. If we knew this before, why did we bother to waste money and energy? We work from dawn to dusk, live frugally, rack our brains, and work hard all our lives. When we are about to die, think about what we have gained. What were we blindly busying for? We can't see the substances with wavelengths outside the light range of 400 to 700 nanometers. We can't see the epidemic germs flying in the air. We can't see the radioactive elements invading our nerve cells, and we can't see viral bacteria filled in the rivers. The welfare of the public is lost virtually. We also turn a blind eye. What will happen tomorrow? Our eyes are also invisible. How far and how deep can our eyes see? What on earth did we see? How different are we from the blind? The achievement of a general cost many lives. One family becomes rich and another 10,000 will be, relatively, poor. The predecessors are brilliant and the descendants will be bleak. In this life, behave like a tyrant. In the next life, one will suffer. What do we really understand? What did you see again? We are so busy every day. What on earth are we busy for? We are running with high spirits on the seemingly straight road. Is this road the best way of life? What is the point of what we are passionate about? We are working overtime to build a house somewhere, yet an earthquake is imminent in this area. So, the more we do, the greater our loss. And the more we hurry up, the more we waste, isn't it? We were sweating profusely and anxiously queued up to buy tickets for the maiden voyage of the Titanic. The day when you got the ticket, was it the day when the tragedy started? A few years ago, one night, I was driving a four-wheel drive Toyota pickup truck on a jungle path in Binka, Zimbabwe, when a rabbit jumped out onto the path and attempted to cross. I slammed on the brakes, but it was too late. The rabbit was crushed to death under the wheel. Oh, rabbit, why do you hurry across the road? If you slowed down for a few seconds, you could pass safely. Does speed really make you safer? Recently, while typing with the window open in the study room of Villa number 46, at night, a few bees would often fly in to look for light. By the next day, all these bees would be found dead. Oh, bees, why do you seek out the light instead of staying in the darkness of the night? Is any bright place a good place? How many tragedies in the world happen in haste? How many joys of life are ruined in the pursuit of brightness? People, where are we going in such a hurry? There was a farmer who heard that there was gold far away. So he sold his property and went to a distant place to pan for gold. A few years later, he returned to his hometown empty-handed. Upon returning to his hometown, the first news he heard filled him with regret. The news is that the man who bought his property dug up a lot of gold on the land he sold. Everyone finds themselves in a blind zone, and it appears that we are navigating blindly. It appears that there are few individuals, both in ancient and modern times, from China and abroad, who can clearly guide us toward a path to happiness. The scriptures of major religions are profoundly deep, and we have yet to grasp their true meanings. How much farther must we tread within this blind zone?
野生动物为什么不培养自己的医生？
Why do wild animals not cultivate their own doctors? Xiefeng. Translation edited by Chinyo. Humans meticulously care for themselves, always fretting over and preparing for unforeseen future events, being precautious and preventative. Contemplating the future and taking precautions isn't inherently wrong, but the question remains, are we devoting too much time, energy, and resources to the future? By excessively fixating on the future, are we neglecting our present? Today, people seem to form friendships mainly for utilitarian purposes, rather than fostering genuine connections as our ancestors did, where hearts were in sync. At home, rely on parents. Outside, rely on friends. But why do we rely? We cloak our true intentions, compromising and pandering to friends just to safeguard against unforeseeable future events, leaning on them, correct? Despite forced smiles, reluctant engagements, and considerable reluctance, we still go out of our way to garner support for others. Are we still being true to ourselves? How much of our time is squandered on fruitless pursuits? Why do we engage in this behavior? Is it all in anticipation of the unforeseeable future? We install security doors, set up alarms, erect fences, hang electric wires, manufacture weapons, construct hospitals, and purchase insurance. As humanity progresses, it appears the less secure we feel. Why is this? Will there come a day when everyone must wear bulletproof vests and dwell in heavily fortified underground bunkers? Is this truly the path of human advancement? Birds and wild animals do not have doctors or hospitals. Does that mean they cannot survive? The day before yesterday, I visited the Marandra Wildlife Sanctuary for observation. A large elephant mingled among a group of water buffaloes. According to the park staff, this elephant has been alive for nearly 30 years. It struck me. This elephant has lived for 30 years without ever seeing a doctor or receiving treatment from a hospital. How did it weather the storms and extreme weather conditions over these 30 years? Among humans, who among the 30-year-olds has never visited a hospital or seen a doctor? Can one not survive without doctors and hospitals? I'm not suggesting that having doctors and hospitals is detrimental. The extension of human lifespan partly hinges on the advancement of medical services. The question remains, why don't birds and wild animals have their own doctors and hospitals? Are they not living freely and happily? In the courtyard of the villa where I reside, the vegetation flourishes. Every day around 4:30 in the morning, birds chirp in unison, and around 5 o'clock, when I open the window, I can observe a dozen or more species of birds merrily chirping and catching insects. They appear so carefree and liberated, utterly unconcerned about world affairs, currency fluctuations, the Iraq crisis, or the Asian financial turmoil. I wonder, should humans take a cue from birds? If we eschew reliance on anything and nothing can be depended upon, if we refrain from worrying excessively about the future, will we live more freely? Let what comes, come, and let what goes, go. Wouldn't life be simpler?
思维误区。
Misconceptions in thinking. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Chinyo. Failure is the mother of success. Is it really so? The original intention of this argument is to encourage people not to be discouraged by failure, but to learn from it in order to achieve success. It seems that the great inventor Edison once said, "Who says I failed? I already know 9,900 ways that won't work." From this, people mistakenly believe that Edison's success is entirely due to failure. Thus, failure is the mother of success. In fact, Edison's success is entirely based on his repeated successes. Without the multiple successes in the early stage and the confidence gained from other successes, he would undoubtedly fail. The truth is, from the perspective of probability theory, success breeds success and failure breeds failure. Successful people will continue to succeed, while failures will continue to fail. Individual or minority examples are not sufficient to establish a theorem. True lovers eventually become a couple. Is it true? This idea seems to tell us that all married couples in the world are loving and affectionate lovers. Let's ask ourselves honestly, have you and your loved one become a married couple? The fact is it is difficult for lovers to become married. If lovers do become married, the outcome is often the drowning of affection. Live and work in peace and contentment. Is it possible? Without a job, how can one live in peace? Would pies fall from the sky? It should be only by enjoying work can one live in peace. In today's world, many young people start their careers first and then start a family, which is correct. Safe and sound. Half right. Being safe leads to being sound, but being sound leads to being safe. Steel is refined through 100 trials. Try it. After 100 attempts, will it become steel or gas? Ever-changing. Yes, without rules to follow. Acting without rules, indeed it is ever-changing. Wisdom comes from experience. Must we experience everything to gain wisdom? Time flies, life is short. If we cannot cleverly make use of things, if we cannot learn from others' experiences and lessons and apply them to different situations to gain wisdom, and instead insist on trying everything by ourselves, isn't that foolish? The only way to catch tiger cubs is to go into the tiger's den. How many spy satellites are hovering over us, observing our every move? With interconnected computers, the world situation can be observed in an instant. In this era, do we still need to risk our lives to catch tiger cubs in their dens? Truth lies in the coffin. Don't expect to find truth just by closing the coffin. People will review history from thousands of years ago for comments. We should still follow Tao and not care about the content of the eulogy when we die. Associate with the wise and you become wise. Associate with the foolish and you become foolish. Nuns think about having a drink in the lively place, and prostitutes want to get away early and cultivate virtue. There are many corrupt officials among the emperor's followers, and there is justice among the gangsters. Who says, associate with the wise and you become wise. Associate with the foolish and you become foolish? A newborn calf is not afraid of tigers. The opposite is, a newborn tiger is most afraid of cows. The viewer sees better than those involved. The truth is, those involved see better, while the viewer is confused. He who has the truth on his side has the majority. Aside from negative cosmic energy, the rest seems to be, the strong have more help, the weak have less help. A dog relies on its master's power. Similarly, people rely on the power of dogs. A bosom friend afar brings a distant land near. Without anyone recognizing oneself, one's neighbor is as distant as the ends of the earth. Once called, it comes. Once waved, it goes. It comes when called, but it's hard to make it go when waved. The strong wind reveals the sturdy grass. Sturdy grass recognizes the strong wind. Do not do unto others what you do not want done to yourself. What you do not want done to yourself, you easily do unto others. Listen to both sides, and you will be enlightened. Heed only one side, and you will be benighted. Heeding only one side leads to darkness, and listening to both sides also leads to darkness. If you want something, you must give something in return. If you give something, it's definitely in order to get something back. Exhaust oneself in service, and only rest in death. Exhaust oneself in service, merely for the sake of reputation. A long road tests the strength of a horse. Time reveals a person's heart. Carrying a heavy load tests the strength of a horse, and money reveals a person's heart. Better to be a shattered jade than an intact tile. Better to be an intact tile than a shattered jade. If the skin is gone, what can the hair attach to? If the hair is gone, where can the skin hide? A broken mirror can be put together again. It's hard to mend a broken mirror. People fear fame as pigs fear fattening. People want fame as pigs want to grow fat. Youth is wasted on the young. Workers don't work hard, and bosses suffer. He who sees the trend is a wise man. He who sees the trend is a smooth talker. If one separates himself from physical labor, he cannot differentiate between the 5 grains. If one separates himself from physical labor, there will be an abundant harvest of the 5 grains. The whole year's work depends on a good start in spring. The whole year's work depends on a good start in winter. All crows are black. All crows are not as black. To spin a cocoon and trap oneself in it. To spin a cocoon for self-defense. Of the 36 strategies, running away is the best. Of the 36 strategies, intangibility is the best. 3 shoemakers surpass Zhuge Liang. 3 shoemakers are still shoemakers. Traveling 1,000 miles is better than 10 years of reading. 1 year of reading is better than traveling 1,000 miles. If you don't listen to the old man, suffering is in front of you. If you only listen to the old man, suffering lies ahead.
颠倒思维，
Reverse thinking. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Chinyo. Not having is having is not having. Up is down is up. Success is failure and failure is success. Gain is loss is gain. You are me and I am you. Humans are Buddhas, and Buddhas are humans. People are ghosts, and ghosts are people. Humans are demons, and demons are humans. Life is death, and death is life. Moving forward is moving backward, and moving backward is moving forward. Destruction is construction, and construction is destruction. Being intelligent is being foolish, and being foolish is being intelligent. Science is a form of superstition, and superstition is a form of science. Politics involves governing people, and governing people involves politics. Workers are laborers, and cadres do nothing. Disorder is order, and order is disorder. A child is an old person, and an old person is a child. The infinitely large tends towards the infinitely small, and the infinitely small tends towards the infinitely large. The darker the place, the brighter it seems, yet the brighter it appears, the darker it becomes. The slower, the faster, and the faster, the slower. The richer one is, the more distressed one becomes, and the more powerful one is, the more dangerous one becomes. The kinder you are, the more foolish you may seem, yet the more foolish you appear, the wiser you may be. The poorer one is, the less trustworthy one is perceived, and the richer one is, the greedier one becomes. The more useless something seems, the more useful it may be, and the less one possesses, the freer one may be. The more enticing something appears, the more it may consume one's life, and the more delectable something seems, the more it may harm one's health. The more one has, the more one will gain, and the less one has, the less one will be bestowed. Looking at people from afar, they appear beautiful, but up close, they seem ugly. Similarly, pigs appear hateful from a distance, yet charming up close. The nourishment for humans is not food, but the different molecular structures of energy, qi, within food. If one consumes this energy directly, they may bypass the need for food altogether. When God created humans, humans began creating gods. When humans raise cows, cows start to raise humans. When humans invent computers, computers will eventually invent humans. Because we have eyes, we don't see what we should see, but we see what we shouldn't see. Because we have mouths, we don't eat what we should eat, but we eat what we shouldn't eat. Those who achieve success early often decline early. Early intelligence can lead to early confusion. Early sorrow can turn into early joy, and early happiness can turn into early sorrow. Those who rise early tend to sleep early, and those who sleep early often rise late. The more one loses, the more one gains. Conversely, the more one gains, the more one loses. In having nothing to lose, one has nothing to gain, yet in losing everything, one gains everything. The ultimate objective of life is not to approach death, but to journey towards another world. Much like the ultimate aim of a fetus is not to grow within the womb, but to enter the world. Thus, human society acts as a grand womb, through which individuals must pass, seemingly through the gateway of death, to reach another world. Consequently, death is not the end, but rather the beginning. The you in dreams is not your true self. The true self slumbers in the real world. Similarly, the you in the present is not the true self. The true self is sleeping in another world. The dream, you, is unaware that your real self is slumbering in the real world, just as the present you is unaware that the true self sleeps in another world. Upon awakening, the dream ends. When the true self awakens in another world, life concludes. If one dies suddenly, it is because the true self in another world did not awaken naturally but was abruptly awoken by others. Thus, regardless of age or manner, death is not an inherently negative event, and the living need not sorrow but should rejoice in their timely cessation of illusion. From the perspective of conventional thinking, the sun unquestionably revolves around the earth, as observed rising from mountains, water, and the horizon, and setting on the opposite side at dusk. The ancient text, Shan Hai Jing, contains a fable titled Quafu Chasing the Sun, wherein the protagonist Quafu perishes due to his adherence to conventional thinking. Similarly, Copernicus was burned alive for expressing a treasonous and heretical notion. The Earth revolves around the Sun, rather than the Sun around the Earth. Consequently, conventional thinking is often the folly of fools. We frequently refer to sea level, yet it is not a level surface but rather a curved one. When traveling by Boeing 747 from Johannesburg to Hong Kong via Bangkok, the altitude of the plane remains relatively constant, leading us to assume it flies straight and parallel. However, the flight path is not linear but rather curved. You take a globe, imagine yourself standing in Oslo, Norway, and then picture the people in Cape Town, South Africa. Can you tell me who is on top, who is on the bottom? If you consider yourself on top, then the people in Cape Town would be below. Since they are below, and everyone's feet are planted on the earth, it is without doubt that the people in Cape Town live with their heads facing down. However, when you visit Cape Town, you find that people are heads up, making it seem like the people in Oslo are the ones with their heads down. Thus, our conception of up and down may be erroneous. Though we claim airplanes soar in the sky, changing spatial perspectives reveals they travel beneath the Earth. Extending from the spatial positions of up and down to the abstract concepts of high and low, we often say, the greater the hardships endured, the more esteemed the person, man struggles upwards, water flows downwards. This erroneous perception of hierarchy makes people forget the meaning of life, trapped in the quagmire of upward ascent since childhood, unable to extricate themselves. By the time old age approaches, they still don't understand, remaining confused, thus muddling their once very beautiful lives. The more energetic a person is, the more susceptible they are to straying from the path, and the smarter and more talented a person is, the easier it is for them to become ensnared in the mundane. Conversely, those who are frequently ill, seemingly hopeless, are more likely to grasp the truth. This is reflected in the Taoist saying, illness breeds Tao in the mind, and the reason lies therein. Let's look at time again. We say, today is March 3rd, 2004, and 10 years from today will be March 3rd, 2014. Upon waking in the morning, we glance at the clock and exclaim, ah, it's already 7 o'clock. When conversing with friends, one might remark, time flies so quickly. I'm almost 40 years old. We feel as though we're swimming in the vast ocean of time. Life is fleeting, and the years are unforgiving. The older one gets, the more prone they are to sighs and regrets. The sunset is infinitely good, but it's almost dusk. Knowing today, why regret yesterday? Time, like a demon or cancer cell, consumes people's happiness, hope, and lives. But let me ask you, where does time come from? Does time truly exist in the universe? Is time really so precious? You may find yourself perplexed. If I were to tell you, time is a construct of humanity, it doesn't truly exist in the universe, and time isn't inherently valuable, you might find it puzzling. If I were to further assert, you've created time as this specter, this illusion, to intimidate and torment yourself, you might begin to question my sanity. Delving deeper, have you ever dreamt of deceased loved ones? The relatives you see in your dreams aren't truly dead. They've merely transitioned to a different realm of existence or shifted to another space. Would you then consider me delusional, spouting nonsense? The truth is, if you were to think so, you'd be correct, indicating your normalcy, practicality, and rationality, but lacking the concept of unconventional thinking. 3 meals a day are considered essential. The diet should be varied. Otherwise, malnutrition may ensue. This is conventional wisdom. If you firmly believe it to be an absolute truth, then indeed it is. You become accustomed to 3 meals a day. Should you miss one, you'll feel hunger and uneasy. If you believe 2 meals a day suffice, then indeed they do. If one day you were to consume an extra meal, you'd experience stomach discomfort. If you believe 1 meal a day is adequate, then it is. Regarding food, if you subscribe to the theories of nutritionists, you'll include chicken, duck, fish, various fruits, vegetables, etc. in your diet. If you adopt a diet that is too simplistic, it will result in your physical and mental emaciation, accompanied by fatigue. But if you reject the conventional nutritionist's approach, believing that consuming only one egg and a glass of milk per day provides ample energy, then indeed it does. Furthermore, if you firmly believe that subsisting on a spoonful of honey, an apple, and an adequate amount of spring water per day is sufficient, then it is. Should you believe that abstaining from food and drink altogether, existing as your own cosmic entity, allows for longevity, then you've grasped the mechanics of animal hibernation, attaining the wisdom of Bodhidharma. Expanding upon this, should you experience faint stomach pains one day, subsequently suspecting stomach cancer and thinking daily, "Oh no, I have stomach cancer." Within 3 months, a medical examination confirms your fears. Conversely, after an examination reveals lung cancer, should you firmly assert, "This cannot be lung cancer. My lungs are perfectly healthy, and there's no way I could have lung cancer." 3 months later, the lung cancer dissipates. The key lies in the power of the mind. It only works when one believes sincerely. With sincerity, one can split gold. "I'm old. I'm no longer capable. I'm already 40. What else can I do? This life is what it is. If there's an afterlife, I must. I'm already 80. This illness cannot be cured. This is impossible. This is too fantastical." These sentiments, born of conventional thinking, lead one down a path of negativity, a suicidal mindset, a misconception of human nature, a spreading virus. Some may argue, "I'm already in my 70s, nearing the end. Even if I were to break free from conventional thinking, what good would it do?" Let me tell you, every day of a person's life, every age, marks both an end and a new beginning. Each day heralds the birth of a new self. People can live not only to 100, but even 200 years. The reason for disbelief lies in the millennia of conventional thinking constraining minds and thoughts, coupled with the misleading notions of shallow science, claiming a pituitary gland at the back of the brain secretes a fluid controlling lifespan and asserting that humans undergo only 7-cell divisions from birth to death. These are all negative inductions. Be practical and realistic. Don't aim too high. Human lives rarely exceed 70. You're almost 80. Be content. Do you really believe in a second youth? The next time someone dares to preach such wisdom, tell them to take their ignorant babble elsewhere. An elephant can be tied to a stake with only a thin rope. A farmer can be tied to the ground with only a bit of land. A worker can be tied to a workshop with only a few sets of tools and a workplace. An intellectual can be tied to a job with only a few hundred yuan salary in the hope of being promoted. A businessman can be tied to a business field with only a little profit. A follower of a religion can be bound within a certain religion by a scripture, and an official can be tied to a post with only one position. The moral creed of "children whose parents are still alive should not travel too far away from their parents" has tied a high school outstanding classmate of mine near his home forever. The absurd causal preaching of "there are 3 forms of unfilial conducts, having no male heir is the gravest of the 3" has made countless respectable people suffer from inner torment forever. For their parents, for relatives and friends, for children, for traditional virtues, for reputation, countless men and women who do not love each other silently endure and live together for a lifetime. Everyone is more or less tied by invisible ropes, and everyone's mind is covered by an invisible net of thinking. Everyone is carrying a heavy cross, but they can't feel it. Or they can feel it, but do not have the strength and courage to break through the fetters. Seeing that the people around them are living like this, they feel at ease, get used to it, become numb, so they bear it. Someone asked me, "It's easy for an elephant tied by a string to break free, but where will it go if it breaks free?" Yes, if you break free, where can you go? With no fodder, no jobs, no wages, no position, and even no housing and the surrounding relationships, how can one survive? There was a group of swans. Every autumn, they flew over thousands of mountains and rivers in a group, singing songs all the way, admiring the green mountains and blue waters under their wings, and going to the far south to open up new living areas. A few of them were captured and fed by humans. They grew fatter and fatter, having no worry about food and drink, and carefree. Even in the cold wind and snow, there was a shelter protecting them from the wind. As time went by, They got used to the food given by the master and got used to the joy with the chickens, ducks, pigs, and dogs. Their brothers and sisters flew back the next year, and they met with a burst of kisses and hubbub. Autumn was here again, and the brothers and sisters came to encourage them to fly to the warm south together. But they advised their brothers and sisters in turn, "Stay here, there is food, drink, and housing here. Why bother to fly back and forth every year? Besides, the place you fly to may not necessarily be lush with water and grass. Even if the food is abundant, you have to find food yourself. How can it compare to us here having food and drink and being free and easy?" The brothers and sisters shook their heads in puzzlement, one by one. They spread their wings and flew away. In the third year, spring had come, and the flowers were in bloom. The brothers and sisters flew back again with singing. But except for two nephews and nieces, their original brothers and sisters were nowhere to be seen. They asked their dirty nephew, "Where did your uncles and aunts go?" The lame niece rushed to cry. A few uncles were killed by the master to entertain guests. Other uncles were killed by the mistress, saying that she wanted to nourish her body, and the aunts were taken away by relatives and friends of the family. Don't know whether they are still alive. When I was grabbing food with the puppy, my leg was bitten by the mother dog. What should my brother and I do now?" As she spoke, she squatted on the ground in despair. All the swans came around at once, stroked and comforted with their white wings. "Children, don't cry. We will take you out of here this autumn." "Where can we go?" asked the poor nephew. Long-term habits have formed a fixed thinking. Once the thinking is fixed, it is difficult to break through. Let's look at another phenomenon. The wholly devoted state of Africans praying for blessings. Groups and groups of Africans on the African land are all dressed in white clothes, regardless of the wind or rain. They go to the big tree or kneel on the grass to repent and pray. What kind and honest people! The wholly devoted state of Africans praying for blessings. Groups and groups of Africans on the African land are all dressed in white clothes, regardless of the wind or rain. They go to the big tree or kneel on the grass to repent and pray. What kind and honest people! I respect these kind-hearted people and hope that all people will go to mosques, Buddhist temples, Taoist temples, churches, and kingdom halls to participate in activities and listen to teachings. I bring this up just to talk about the problem of thinking. All religions have their own rituals and forms, and they have fixed activities every day, every month, and every year. What I want to ask is, can these rituals, forms, and activities alone enable you to be liberated, reborn in heaven, in the Elysium world, or the Millennium world? I have no objection to your beliefs. The problem is that you must figure out what you believe in and whether its past and future are clear. If you don't know, will all your efforts be in vain, and will you go astray? Just take Buddhism as an example. Shakyamuni Buddha said in the Diamond Sutra, "Those who see me in form and seek me in sound are treading the heterodox path and cannot perceive Tathagata." What is form? Form refers to material forms, things that can be seen and touched. Then, is paying homage to Buddha statues, burning incense and kowtowing and praying in accordance with the teachings of Buddha? If a physical body goes all the way to a temple to worship a physical statue, does the behavior itself violate the teachings of the Buddha? Is it already on the heterodox path? Everyone who worships the Buddha statue, I want to ask you, where is the Buddha? Is the Buddha in the temple? If you don't have Buddha in your heart, even if you travel all over the world, you can't find Buddha. If you have Buddha in your heart, there are Buddhas everywhere. If you really want to worship Buddha, you must keep in mind the teachings of Buddha. First, worship Buddha in your heart and learn from Buddha in speech and behavior. Only in this way can you understand the principles of Buddhism, perceive the nature of Buddha, and finally become a Buddha. Worship that emphasizes form but ignores content is a kind of blasphemy against gods and Buddhas. Rituals and forms are a kind of restraint, a kind of pretense, just to strengthen people's beliefs, and a means and process of dissemination. Whether you attain Tao depends entirely on your own psychology and actions. If you don't have it in your heart, it is useless, and not even if you burn incense and kowtow every day. Go to temples and Taoist churches to worship statues of gods every day. If you have it in your heart, even if you have never been to a temple or church, you can become a loyal disciple of gods and Buddhas. Due to the limitation of conventional thinking, most people think that gods and Buddhas are in temples, Taoist temples, and churches, or in some places that are indefinable. They believe that as long as they participate in religious activities and hold ceremonies, they can get the blessings of gods and Buddhas, and their merits and virtues are fulfilled, and they will attain the state of spiritual immortality. It is actually very wrong. In fact, gods and Buddhas are one with humans, and gods and Buddhas are on us, and gods and Buddhas cannot be deceived. Everyone has divinity and Buddha nature and interacts with the gods and Buddhas in other dimensions. Whether we can go to the space of gods and Buddhas after death is entirely determined by the response information waves we send out from our body and the intensity of the visible light colors which we have but cannot be seen and distinguished by the naked eye. Just like a networked computer, the program has been determined, and it all depends on how you apply it. It is impossible to get away with it if you want to be opportunistic. The great world seems chaotic, complicated, unpredictable, and elusive, but it is actually very simple. Our every word, deed, every action, every thought is recorded on our body without omission. Even in the pitch dark night, one does things secretly, thinking that the gods do not know it, and the ghosts do not notice it. In fact, the information waves and light emitted from us have changed and have been clearly revealed. Divine punishments, though slow, are always sure, with big meshes yet letting nothing slip through. Who can you fool?
思维的威力。
The Power of Thinking. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Qinyo. Let me begin with an example. In the fifth issue of Reader in 1997, there was a short article with the following content. One day, during a casual conversation, Zhang Jindua asked Lu Jimin, "Do you know how one can die the most peaceful death?" Jimin was at a loss for words. Jindua remarked, "The best way for someone to die is by falling from an airplane. It's the most peaceful death." Ironically, on October 17, 1958, while leading a cultural delegation to Afghanistan, Jindua's plane crashed, and he passed away at the age of 61. You must have recognized the power of thinking. Zhang Jindua's death from falling out of an airplane was not accidental, but rather a result of his thinking. There are numerous such instances. You can explore them on your own. Thinking is a form of non-material that communicates with negative cosmic energy. The path ahead of us is not determined by our actions, but rather controlled by our thinking. Whether positive or negative, once our thinking is set, the energy of the negative universe will fully align to achieve our goals. I'd rather not delve deeper into this, to prevent others from mastering its laws and causing harm to others. Let me offer a few unique examples for you to ponder or experiment with. Take a piece of paper the size of a bank check and firmly believe in your mind that it's a flawless bank check with the exact amount written on it. Head to the bank to cash it, and the teller will surely comply. However, any trace of doubt in your mind will lead to failure. Lock yourself in a room with closed doors and windows and practice how to exit it. If you eliminate the presence of tangible objects like walls and doors from your thinking, you can easily leave. But if even a slight doubt exists, you'll inevitably hit a wall. Those who can walk on water don't perceive it as such beneath their feet. If you start to panic or doubt the water's ability to support you while walking on it, you'll sink immediately. Attempt to infiltrate a heavily guarded location. By envisioning yourself as invisible in your mind, you can confidently enter and exit. However, the slightest fear will immediately alert the guards. Stand atop a high-rise building or a cliff's edge and imagine flying to another high point without any tools. Conventional thinking deems it impossible and reckless, yet unconventional thinkers can achieve it. By conventional standards, the aforementioned scenarios are mere fantasies and delusions. If you hold this view, it indicates your normalcy, rationality, and scientific mindset. Finding them intriguing suggests you possess the capacity for unconventional thinking. Recognizing the superficiality of our understanding of the material world implies that such feats are entirely plausible, signifying a departure from conventional thinking. Further development will unveil more mysteries of the universe. Thinking is one of the most potent energies in the cosmos. Those who master it wield boundless power and can invisibly influence life and death. Mastery depends on our self-cultivation, while accessing higher realms hinges on our self-improvement. Here, what I want to declare is, When it comes to unusual endeavors, start with the small steps. Don't rush to summon winds and call forth rain or command the wind and clouds right from the start. As your self-cultivation improves, many things will naturally come to fruition. If you're eager for success and attempt to achieve it overnight, pushing hard before it's time, you do so at your own risk. The path to attaining great power is deceptively simple. Once hinted at, it becomes clear. With heightened spiritual power, compassion becomes paramount. Avoid arrogance, complacency, or actions that may harm others. If you stray onto a darker path, don't blame me when regret sets in too late. Should you ever ascend to higher realms, remember the origins of your unconventional thinking in your heart, so as not to violate the rules of heaven and end up like water without a source or a tree without roots.
我反常思维的契机及过程。
The origin and process of my unconventional thinking. Xiefeng. Translation edited by Qinyo. To explain the origins of my unconventional thinking and to provide insight into the scientific approach to unconventional thinking, let me briefly outline the process through which I began to think unconventionally. The first person to recognize my unconventional thinking was my wife. She always said I was peculiar, different from others, and later she even labeled me as a monster. Because of this, we often couldn't reach a consensus on many family matters due to our different ways of thinking. But because I insisted on my own views and was unwilling to change my mindset, she had no choice. I said to her, "You may be right, but give me a chance. As long as you do as I say, our lives will undergo a significant change every 5 years. If there's no major change in the first 5 years, I'll always listen to you." Of course, practice proved that my thinking conforms to objective laws. In fact, in my opinion, normality is abnormal, and abnormality is normal. The thinking of ordinary people is confused by dazzling surface phenomena, focusing only on immediate interests and the present time and space, without understanding what emptiness is, what reality is, what existence is, and what non-existence is, so they cannot understand unconventional thinking. Some people are purely blinded by their own arrogance, selfishness, and jealousy. Their conventional thinking confines their minds. Some people are blocked from wisdom by inferiority, poverty, stubbornness, illness, and prejudice. In my view, the vast majority of people are covered by layers of nets and can never break free without external force. Some may ask, am I not doing fine? Where should I break free from? Aren't you just like me, living on the earth? Indeed, I am just like you, living on this earth. The difference is that I know why I'm alive, while you are living in confusion. When I die, I know where I'm going, while you may end up in hell. Now, let's get back to the point. In the first issue of the Reader's Digest in Gansu, China, in 1987, there was a question in a reader survey. What are your hobbies? My answer was, self-anesthesia. This statement appeared in another issue under the Report on the Reader's Survey Form section, with a comment. A reader pessimistically wrote, self-anesthesia? He made very pertinent comments on our publication while sharply criticizing certain social phenomena. He did not sign his name. Self-anesthesia is probably just self-deprecation. He is actively contemplating and feeling the responsibility on his shoulders. Why did I choose self-anesthesia? Because I found that this world is upside down. People live upside down, and everything they see is inverted. The opportunity that triggered such thinking for me was in 1982 when I was generating electricity in the Chilean mountains at an altitude of nearly 4,000 meters. I had altitude sickness, with my heart beating 120 times per minute. I often had headaches, felt weak all over, and had to stop and catch my breath after walking a few steps. I choked while eating, and 2 months later, my nails started to indent. I raised my difficulties to the leadership, hoping to be transferred to the temporary workshop below the mountain. At that time, Dr. Lee, who later committed suicide, from the team also helped me plead with the leadership, but the answer I got was, this is the arrangement of the organization and the revolutionary work needs it. Other places are already full, and you only have this position. At that time, the leader who had previously worked as a laborer and later became a political instructor stabbed me, saying, You have no sense to appreciate favors. Helpless, I thought of running away, but to my surprise, all the drivers entering the mountain didn't let me hitchhike. It turned out that there was a rule that drivers were not allowed to take people out of the mountain without the permission of the leadership. I thought about walking out, but it was not easy. Trucks from Human City, where Iron Man, Wang Jinsi had worked, would take nearly 7 hours of bumpy driving to reach our work site. Along the way, except for occasional tints of Tibetan herdsmen, there were almost no signs of human habitation. Could I walk out? I realized that I must have incurred this ordeal because I had offended the brigade leader. Understanding this, I felt relieved. My first thought at the time was, to save myself? I thought, if grass can grow on the mountain, it must have the ability to withstand the cold. So, I began to look for edible grass. Fortunately, there was a wild onion on the mountain that looked like garlic and tasted like onions. I started to eat it in large quantities, firmly believing that eating this onion would relieve my altitude sickness. Whether it was a psychological effect or the effect of wild onions, I gradually adapted physiologically. Once I found that my life was no longer in danger, I felt that the world was vast. Apart from the time for sleep each day, I remained silent and reserved, no longer seeking approval from others. I concentrated all my time on sitting on the top of the mountain, starting a few months of intense contemplation of life from the simple and practical slogan, organization arrangement, revolutionary work needs, commonly used by leaders. Although I didn't realize the true meaning of life at that time, I already knew many mysteries of life. The mystery is to look at the world and life in reverse, using reverse thinking to understand the connotations and extensions of things and phenomena. For example, organization arrangement, revolutionary work needs can be understood as personal arrangement, leadership needs. Labor is most glorious is interpreted as being an official is most glorious. Model worker is seen as ignorant model. Three goods becomes three bads. Advanced individual transforms into brainless individual. Moving closer to the organization signifies moving closer to the leadership. Revolution equates to deprivation. Obeying the organization's arrangement implies suppressing one's own personality. Reactionary individual may represent thoughtful individual. Good comrade might signify someone who doesn't adhere to principles. And mischievous person could indicate someone with some talent, and so on. Outwardly, I went with the flow, following nature, trying to maintain harmony with people and leaders as much as possible. Sometimes, I also showed off and competed for excellence or the three goods, but inwardly, I didn't care about the people and things around me at all. But all this couldn't be discussed with people. Everyone was busy chasing colorful bubbles, and they didn't understand what I was talking about. I thought it was better to self-anesthetize first. 4 years before going abroad, when I was still a middle school teacher, Mr. Li Zhengrui, the director of the Lanzhou Information Office, asked me to contract his office. I wrote to him, telling him that I wanted to go abroad first, because my thoughts at the time were out of sync with the times and the surrounding environment, and I was afraid of becoming a frog at the bottom of the well. I could only leave my homeland, go to a foreign country, and breathe different air to verify the correctness and universality of my thinking. Today, my ability to write Life Genuine abroad is the result of unconventional thinking. Some may perceive it as mere good fortune, but in truth, it was a deliberate plan on my part. However, don't mistake it for scheming. I'm simply employing unconventional thinking and the principle of non-action, Wu Wei. Who can predict what will happen to themselves 4 or 5 years from now? Probably 90% of people can't do it. After descending the mountain, I set aside orthodox works like Marxist-Leninist writings and Mao Zedong's selected works, and instead delved into the thoughts of Sakyamuni and Laozi to experience their thinking. Then I studied the I Ching, Book of Changes, Bagua, 8 Trigrams, Chiman Duanjia, the art of becoming invisible Taoist magic, palmistry, chiromancy, astrology, feng shui, 8 characters divination, solar term picking, yin and yang 5 elements, name mysteries, Huangdi Neijing, Yellow Emperor's inner canon, and basic traditional Chinese medicine, among others, which are considered by some to be superstitious or unorthodox. I also scrutinized Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory, Freud's psychoanalytic theory, and Nietzsche's philosophy of the Übermensch. None of the above fully answered my questions. After that, I worked as a translator, a truck driver, a salesperson, a street vendor, a shopkeeper, a nightclub manager, a restaurant owner, a fast food operator, and a bartender in a foreign country, using real-life experiences to verify my insights and experience the ups and downs of life. Apart to my experiences abroad, I worked as a farmer, a construction worker, a cargo handler, a clerk, an accountant, a party branch secretary, a cultural propaganda team instructor in a commune, a fitter, a welder, a car mechanic, an electrician, a high school teacher, a department clerk in an office, and an office director after going into business. In my childhood, I herded sheep for several years. I picked wild vegetables and cleaned up dung. I scavenged for scrap and sold fruit in a county town. I visited villages and households to sell vinegar. Additionally, I caught pigeons and smashed bird nests. I raised squirrels and used a bamboo basket to catch fish by the Yellow River. Furthermore, I picked wild vegetables and flowers in the mountains for cooking. I participated in various forms of gambling, including five dragons, 10 and a half, coin flipping, dice throwing, drawing the nine tiles, mahjong, blackjack, and roulette. I also smoked, drank, to the point of causing stomach bleeding, and used opium for pain relief. I started dating at the age of 13 and was publicly criticized and warned by the school principal at a school-wide assembly, ridiculed, mocked by classmates, almost dropped out of school, and served as a Red Guard platoon leader during the Cultural Revolution, where I was beaten, resulting in a nosebleed, betrayed by colleagues, deceived by respected individuals, and cheated and extorted by international criminal organization. In 1960, I almost starved to death, nearly drowned while swimming in the Yellow River, almost got bitten to death by a snake on the mountains of Bandura district in Zimbabwe, and narrowly avoided rolling down a hill in Mutare district in Zimbabwe due to a car accident. The highest-ranking person I ever came into contact with was Prime Minister Zhu Rongji. Our interaction was limited to a handshake, and he simply said, "Hello," to which I replied, "Hello," and that was it. Next was the Minister of Posts and Telecommunications of Zimbabwe, who also served as the chairman of an international organization. I rented his villa for 3 years. During my time abroad, I worked with an American, two Botswana nationals, several Zimbabweans for over 6 months, and had extensive business dealings with many Indians, Pakistanis, and a few South Koreans, British, and Portuguese. I spent a considerable amount of time studying, chatting, dining, and going on outings with British and Portuguese individuals. I also established a good friendship with a Brazilian family in Mozambique. I spent 6 months reading through Mao Zedong's Selected Works Volumes 1 of 5 at the Party School, and also studied Popular Science Literature Volumes 1 of 4. I spent 6 months reading through Mao Zedong's Selected Works Volumes 1 of 5 at the Party School, and also studied Popular Science Literature Volumes 1 of 4. My wide-ranging and colorful experiences, extensive learning, and social engagements did not lead me to fully grasp the essence of life. It was the opportunity of delving into the study of the Bible for a span of 4 years and continuous contemplation that truly brought me enlightenment. I first tackled the question of the origin of life. I had earnestly explored Darwin's On the Origin of Species, intending to use Darwin's theory of evolution to refute the theory of God creating humanity. However, the results of my investigation, comprising tens of thousands of staggering facts, led me to completely overturn Darwin's theory. I came to a profound realization that Darwin merely scratched the surface on the question of the origin of life and fundamentally failed to grasp the essence of life. Richard Dawkins' theory regarding the origin of life from water was pure nonsense. Fortunately, Darwin and Richard were individuals with scientific acumen and self-awareness. Darwin admitted that the initial forms of life may have been created by God, while Richard advised people to regard their theories as hypotheses or scientific fantasies. Unfortunately, most people mistake conjecture for certainty, using the ambiguous theories of Darwin and Richard to deny the indisputable fact of God creating life. In doing so, they close the door to wisdom, leaving generations to wander outside the treasury of true understanding. The treasury of wisdom refers to entering a higher level of thinking, which is the state of mind described by Buddha Shakyamuni as abiding nowhere and generating the mind. It is also the kind of thinking advocated by us communists as seeking truth from facts. Of course, many communists say one thing and do another, which is another matter. It is to enter the universe's way of thinking scientifically, devoutly, selflessly, and non-actionably, entering the way of thinking of Jesus, Buddha Shakyamuni, and Laozi, entering the thinking of the greatest creator, and in this way, to understand the universe, life, and the things that are invisible to the naked eye, inaudible to the ear, and imperceptible to the body, but still affect the material world. To validate that one has entered this advanced thinking state, there is a very obvious change that everyone can try. Our usual dreams are mainly in black and white, and the scenes, emotions, and people we encounter in dreams are closely related to our real life and the world. However, when we enter an advanced thinking state, our dreams are different from before. The majority of our dreams become colorful, and the people encountered in dreams are ones we have never thought of or seen before. The environments in dreams are unimaginable, some are horrifying, and some are incredibly beautiful. As our thinking delves deeper, the mysteries of the universe will unfold one by one before us, and the 36-dimensional spaces will appear clearly. We will discover that we possess many extraordinary abilities. Soaring through the clouds, walking on water, passing through walls, becoming invisible, flying, and more. Here, I raise the issue of time once again. We typically think that a matter of seconds is just a snap of the fingers, but within this mere instant, we can experience intricate events in our dreams and even enjoy a long passage of time. We transcend time that cannot be measured in space that is infinite. The original title of my book is Trip of Transcending Time and Space, and I hope everyone can grasp the mysteries within it. Well, that's the journey of my unconventional thinking. Whether you believe it or not, it's up to you to ponder. Unconventional thinking is the best way to explore the mysteries of the universe and find the true meaning of life. As long as we proceed step by step, we will eventually enter a vast world. At that time, we will be amazed to discover the essence of the universe and the mysteries of life. We will be excited about the beautiful celestial realm of the afterlife and will love life and humanity even more, cherishing the present life more than ever. The purpose of unconventional thinking is to explore the mysteries of the universe, the role and value of time and space. Let's now move on to the second chapter of Life Chanyuan, the Universe, Time and Space chapter, to explore its mysteries.
反常思维18条，
18 items of unconventional thinking. Xiefeng, October 8th, 2005. Translation edited by Chinyo. There is no absolutely closed space. Time does not exist. Everyone is a cell of the greatest creator. Going straight forward, one will return to the origin. You can put on your shoes first and then your socks. Rotating 360 degrees, one cannot return to the origin. Stones can also cross rivers. Life is not life, but death. Death is not death, but life. Parallel lines can intersect. What the eyes see is not real. Human beings cannot manage themselves well. Man has no original sin, only primitivity. Consciousness determines everything. Paradise exists in every possible way. Truth and falsehood, good and evil, beauty and ugliness, love and hatred coexist with each other. There is no absolute truth, goodness, beauty, and love, nor absolute falsehood, evil, ugliness, and hatred. What the brain can imagine is real. The more you possess, the more you lose. People can live completely in consciousness. Entering Life at Genuine without new content may disappoint visitors. Today, I don't feel like writing an article, so let's just piece something together and consider it plain water to drink.
两点之间直线最长，曲线最短。
Between 2 points, the straight line is the longest and the curved one is the shortest. Xiefeng, April 25th, 2007. Translation edited by Chinyo. Between 2 points, the shortest distance is a straight line. This is common sense in mathematics, and I have no objection. I'm just thinking about it from another angle. I tried to connect the 2 points of Beijing and New York with a straight line, because the straight line between the 2 points is the shortest, but after tossing about for a long time, I found that the straight line between the 2 points is the longest. The principle is that the Earth is round, and there is no straight line connection between any 2 points. Once you want to connect with a straight line, the connection must go straight out along the tangent, and it is difficult to connect with another point. Only a curved connection represents the shortest distance. I took a Coca-Cola bottle and marked 2 points on its surface and tried to connect the 2 points with a straight line but failed. The result still proved that the straight line between the 2 points was the longest, and the curve was the shortest. As a result of various thinking and experiments, it is found that the conclusion that the straight line between 2 points is the shortest only holds true in two-dimensional space, and beyond the two-dimensional plane, this conclusion becomes invalid. In addition, this conclusion is valid in theory, but not in practice. That is to say, 2 points that are not in the same dimension cannot be connected by a straight line. The more you want to use a straight line to connect, the farther the distance will be. At the same time, what is correct in theory cannot be applied in practice. What will be the result of extending this discovery to other fields? In the field of thought, 2 points cannot be connected by a straight line. For example, the thoughts of Jesus, Buddha, Laozi, Muhammad, Marx, Lenin, Mao Zedong, Osho, Seth, etc., represent points that cannot be linearly linked. The shortest distance is a curved line. In the social field, such as the systems of the United States and China, there is no straight line between these 2 points. The shortest is only the curved one. In the field of belief, such as atheism and theism, evolution and creation, idealism and materialism, cannot be connected in a straight line. In human culture, for example, the values of Eastern and Western cultures cannot be linearly connected. In terms of love, the more direct the connection, the shorter the lifespan. A winding path leads to a hidden spot. A meditation chamber lies deep within the flowering trees. The more curved, the more nerve-wracking, the tastier. In terms of happiness, the more you want to get happiness in a straight line, the less you can get happiness. Many people have walked for a lifetime and finally find that the more direct road is the farthest way from happiness, and it does not lead to any destination. In fact, the Chinese know the truth of the curve best. Bribery is not done directly to oneself, but through his wife, his sisters, or his wife's sisters. It is not necessarily the bribe being his money, but to provide convenience for profit. They do not go directly to the office to ask for help, but invite people to go to the hotel first to talk about it. Although they are anxious, they pretend to be okay. Strategies such as playing hard to get, relieving the state of Zhao by besieging the state of Wei, crossing the sea under camouflage, making a feint to the east and attacking in the west, advancing secretly by an unknown path, resurrecting a dead soul by borrowing a corpse, abusing the locust tree while pointing to the mulberry, stealing the beams and pillars and replacing them with rotten timbers, using seductive women to corrupt the enemy, sowing discord among the enemy, etc. all exemplify taking indirect paths to achieve one's goals. The more curved the road of life, the better, and the more direct, the worse. What's so good about being born without experiencing anything and going straight to the grave? Falling in love today, getting married tomorrow, having a baby the day after tomorrow, and dying the day after tomorrow's tomorrow, what good is there? Eat, go to work, sleep, eat again, go to work again, sleep again. What good is there? What's so good about staying the same? A great man once said, "While the prospects are bright, the road has twists and turns." Reversing of this sentence is a truth. The road has twists and turns, but the prospects are bright. At least it makes more sense. The same is true in the field of life. If a master were to reveal the mysteries of life directly, and we were to journey to the Elysium Islands continent tomorrow, firstly, we would be unable to reach them, and secondly, we would miss out on the rich and diverse experiences of life. If you are having fun, laughing, playing, laughing and joking, feeling, undergoing, and experiencing, it looks like a curve, not direct, but the actual situation is. The straight line between 2 points is the longest, and the curve is the shortest. I like unconventional thinking and regard the normal as abnormal, and the abnormal as normal. As a result, thinking can extend to infinitely strange and broad fields, and often have the feeling of, just as the weary traveler despairs of finding a road, lo, a village appears, and the shade of willows and riotous flowers beckon. Often think from a different perspective. Often look at things upside down. This enlivens your spirit. Hee hee.
两点之间直线最长，曲线最短。
Between 2 points, the straight line is the longest and the curved one is the shortest. Xiefeng. April 25, 2007. Translation edited by Chinyo. Between 2 points, the shortest distance is a straight line. This is common sense in mathematics, and I have no objection. I'm just thinking about it from another angle. I tried to connect the 2 points of Beijing and New York with a straight line, because the straight line between the 2 points is the shortest, but after tossing about for a long time, I found that the straight line between the 2 points is the longest. The principle is that the Earth is round, and there is no straight line connection between any 2 points. Once you want to connect with a straight line, the connection must go straight out along the tangent, and it is difficult to connect with another point. Only a curved connection represents the shortest distance. I took a Coca-Cola bottle and marked 2 points on its surface and tried to connect the 2 points with a straight line but failed. The result still proved that the straight line between the 2 points was the longest, and the curve was the shortest. As a result of various thinking and experiments, it is found that the conclusion that the straight line between 2 points is the shortest only holds true in two-dimensional space, and beyond the two-dimensional plane, this conclusion becomes invalid. In addition, this conclusion is valid in theory, but not in practice. That is to say, 2 points that are not in the same dimension cannot be connected by a straight line. The more you want to use a straight line to connect, the farther the distance will be. At the same time, what is correct in theory cannot be applied in practice. What will be the result of extending this discovery to other fields? In the field of thought, 2 points cannot be connected by a straight line. For example, the thoughts of Jesus, Buddha, Laozi, Muhammad, Marx, Lenin, Mao Zedong, Osho, Seth, etc., represent points that cannot be linearly linked. The shortest distance is a curved line. In the social field, such as the systems of the United States and China, there is no straight line between these 2 points. The shortest is only the curved one. In the field of belief, such as atheism and theism, evolution and creation, idealism and materialism, cannot be connected in a straight line. In human culture, for example, the values of Eastern and Western cultures cannot be linearly connected. In terms of love, the more direct the connection, the shorter the lifespan. A winding path leads to a hidden spot. A meditation chamber lies deep within the flowering trees. The more curved, the more nerve-wracking, the tastier. In terms of happiness, the more you want to get happiness in a straight line, the less you can get happiness. Many people have walked for a lifetime and finally find that the more direct road is the farthest way from happiness, and it does not lead to any destination. In fact, the Chinese know the truth of the curve best. Bribery is not done directly to oneself, but through his wife, his sisters, or his wife's sisters. It is not necessarily the bribe being his money, but to provide convenience for profit. They do not go directly to the office to ask for help, but invite people to go to the hotel first to talk about it. Although they are anxious, they pretend to be okay. Strategies such as playing hard to get, relieving the state of Zhao by besieging the state of Wei, crossing the sea under camouflage, making a feint to the east and attacking in the west, advancing secretly by an unknown path, resurrecting a dead soul by borrowing a corpse, abusing the locust tree while pointing to the mulberry, stealing the beams and pillars and replacing them with rotten timbers, using seductive women to corrupt the enemy, sowing discord among the enemy, etc. all exemplify taking indirect paths to achieve one's goals. The more curved the road of life, the better, and the more direct, the worse. What's so good about being born without experiencing anything and going straight to the grave? Falling in love today, getting married tomorrow, having a baby the day after tomorrow, and dying the day after tomorrow's tomorrow, what good is there? Eat, go to work, sleep, eat again, go to work again, sleep again. What good is there? What's so good about staying the same? A great man once said, "While the prospects are bright, the road has twists and turns." Reversing of this sentence is a truth. The road has twists and turns, but the prospects are bright. At least it makes more sense. The same is true in the field of life. If a master were to reveal the mysteries of life directly, and we were to journey to the Elysium Islands continent tomorrow, firstly, We would be unable to reach them, and secondly, we would miss out on the rich and diverse experiences of life. If you are having fun, laughing, playing, laughing and joking, feeling, undergoing, and experiencing, it looks like a curve, not direct, but the actual situation is. The straight line between 2 points is the longest, and the curve is the shortest. I like unconventional thinking and regard the normal as abnormal, and the abnormal as normal. As a result, thinking can extend to infinitely strange and broad fields, and often have the feeling of, just as the weary traveler despairs of finding a road, lo, a village appears, and the shade of willows and riotous flowers beckon. Often think from a different perspective. Often look at things upside down. This enlivens your spirit. Hee hee.
如何先穿鞋子再穿袜子？
How to put on shoes before socks. Xiefeng. February 12th, 2022. Translation edited by Chinyo. Yesterday, a netizen asked me how to put on shoes before socks. Since I didn't have time to respond yesterday, I am writing this article to answer today. Putting on shoes before socks is the fifth item in my article, 18 Items of Unconventional Thinking, in the chapter on unconventional thinking. Attempting this reverse order of dressing using conventional logic might seem absurd, as it is exceedingly challenging from a traditional perspective and could be considered impossible. To tackle this unconventional concept, one must employ unconventional thinking. Once unconventional approaches are embraced, solutions become apparent. Renaming shoes and socks offers a simple workaround. Call shoes socks and socks shoes. This semantic switch allows for the unconventional act of putting on shoes before socks. In the thousand-year world, where I resided, footwear was singular in form, referred to interchangeably as either shoes or socks. If one desired to wear two pairs, layering was the solution. This allowed us to distinguish the inner layer as shoes and the outer layer as socks. Isn't this a clever way to don shoes before socks? Our preconceived notions often lead us to believe that shoes are sturdy and rigid, while socks are loose and soft. However, shoes can be made pliable and socks flexible. Consider the soft shoes provided by some hotels, easily accommodating a pair of supple socks. Must shoes be indivisible? Detachable shoe designs offer an alternative. Don the shoes first, then unzip the instep to open the shoe upper, allowing for sock insertion. Close the upper and zip up the zipper. Voila! Shoes before socks. Every phenomenon should be considered within a realm of possibility. 64 possibilities to be precise. Limiting ourselves to familiar knowledge and cognitive boundaries renders many problems unsolvable. For instance, must the China-US relationship solely vacillate between cooperation and confrontation? Surely, there exist 62 other potential approaches. Similarly, must human relationships be confined to just acquaintances and strangers, relatives and foes, or rich and poor? By embracing unconventional thinking, we unlock a myriad of solutions to seemingly insurmountable challenges. Must we adhere to the notion that human society's survival mode must either be capitalism or socialism? Is communism the only future for humanity? Many seemingly unsolvable or difficult problems can only be resolved or answered through unconventional thinking.
反物质世界篇，千年界。
The Thousand-Year World. Xiefeng. The location, size, and process of entering the thousand-year world. Starting from the Earth, it takes us about 16 minutes time, the negative universe speed, about 960 light-years, to reach the thousand-year world. Its size is about 10 times that of the Earth. At the moment when the flesh body dies and human consciousness disappears, another consciousness is born. Suddenly, you will have the feeling of weightlessness or floating. In fact, you are now in the space tunnel where you don't have fear. Instead, you have the pleasant, easy, and wonderful feelings. You see no object, just the beams of color lines running backward. When you are about to reach the thousand-year world, you can dimly see there is a colorful bridge in the distance. At the moment when you see the colorful bridge, you will lose your consciousness again and fall into the sleep. When you regain your consciousness, you will first hear attractive celestial music. You open your eyes and find yourself lying in the arms of fairy with the kindly people cheering around you. They are celebrating your birth, which means you are in the thousand-year world. The geography in the thousand-year world. There are 5 continuous ridges in the thousand-year world with their height above 10,000 meters. There are more than 8,800 independent mounts with their height between 3,000 and 6,000 meters. There are 10 large rivers flowing into the vast and flat lake, which is greatly fertile. In this vast and flat lake, there are almost 100,000 islands. There are no deserts, Gobi deserts, or seas. Everywhere you can see the mountain streams, falls, and lakes. Climate and plants. The light in the thousand-year world comes from the distant planets. There is no sun, no day and night difference, or no shadow. The temperature is almost stable. The sky is blue dotted with clouds, which change colors when floating and produce rich imaginations. There is no rainfall, snowfall, thunder, or lightning. There is often the cloud and mist with mild temperature. There are numerous types of plants, including the straight pine trees, standing several hundred meters, and the yellowwood with the tree crown covering a football court. The trees are everywhere on the mountains, islands, plains, and canyons. They are not dense but green all the year. The flowers are blossoming all the time. A certain kind of flower can keep changing its color and give out different fragrance. The plants in the thousand-year world grow very slowly. It takes a leaf 3 years, Earth time, to grow up into its normal size. It takes a pear 10 years to be mature. The life longevity of all animals and plants are 10 times of that of the animals and plants on the Earth. The average human life longevity is 100 years on the Earth, the average figure considering the future. However, the people in the thousand-year world will live 1,000 years in average. That's why it is called the thousand-year world. Animals and insects. There are hundreds of thousands of types of lands, air, aquatic, and ground insects in the thousand-year world. But there is no meat-eating animal or reptile there. So you can never see the lions, wolves, or foxes, nor can you see the snakes or the lizards. The grass-eating animals have poor fertility. Of the insects, there are no fly, mosquito, bug, flea, or centipede. The food chain is different from that on the Earth. The most brutal is the bird that eats the worms. 3. Human society structure and life. The people in the thousand-year world mainly include 1. The local people, 2. The law violators from the 10,000-year world, and 3. The Earth people who have boasted perfect human nature after self-refinery and self-improvement. The thousand-year world has no class society, no wealth gap, no concept of nations, no competition, no conflict, no war, no theft or robbery. However, there is a management class there. There is no modern industry, agriculture, or livestock. There is no city or rural area. But there are numerous games here. The only work is to build the roads, boats, and houses, raise the silkworms, weave the cloth, and make the clothing. Because there is no rainfall, snowfall, cold weather, hot weather, day or night, the house structure is different from that on the Earth. The people saw the wood with the rope made of a plant fiber. The wood of the houses is soft and easy to process. The roof is made by the large leaves of a solid plant. The wall is made of the dense red salix. The yard in front of the house is made by the unique flowers, grass, and stones of all forms. The clothing is woven with very thin dyed silk. People wear this kind of light woven clothing, showing the celestial nature. The people living in the thousand-year world don't eat meat. Their main food is the fruit, melon, and half-mature cereal. Their drinks are made of the tea-like leaves soaked in the water together with honey. There are all year-round fruits and melons here. Because the total population is less than 200 million, 90% of the fruits and melons are eaten by the animals, birds, and insects. The people in the thousand-year world do not get married. So there is no clan or family here. They live in a society similar to the maternal society in some nations on the Earth. People love each other quite randomly. They don't have frequent sex life as the Earth people do. People only have 3 or 4 heat periods in a year. The women have low fertility and only have 1 or 2 kids in their life. Few women will have 3 kids. The labor of the men is mainly to build roads, houses, and boats, while the women mainly look after the kids, raise the silkworms, and weave the silk and cloth. 4. Ideology and values. Because they have the different objective existence from that on the Earth, the people have different perceptions, feeling, thinking, and other psychological activities from those on the Earth. They don't have class, oppression, exploitation, wealth gap, political factions, religions, or struggling. The mentality of the people is in constant peace. There is no such thing as the morals on the earth, no sense of factional conflicts or getting the upper hand. Everything is natural and instinctive. There is no jealousy. There is no need to run a plant, shop, restaurant, or hotel. The greatest fun of the people is to attend the collective work followed by games and tourism. The supreme law is to avoid private ownership or waste. For instance, if you love a woman and want to take her, hinder her freedom and prevent her from having affairs with other men, you are violating the law. If you eat half of a pear and throw away the left half, you are wasting and violating the law. The biggest punishment for the violation is to prevent you from the collective work. The final retribution is that you will be downgraded to the mortal world after you live and die 1,000 years later. You will begin your sufferings in the new cycle of life as an earth person. 5 others. There is no congenital disease, infectious disease, or the disease caused by the food or labor. There is no psycho disease caused by the tight human relationship or supply shortage. The people only die from the old age, not for any other reasons. There is no air crash, no traffic accident, no snake biting, shark attacking, no fighting, and no falling down the cliff. They reach their adolescent period when they are 100 years old. The youth lasts from 100 and ends at over 700. The self-refinery period lasts between 700 years till death. It is also the period when they begin to participate in the management of the thousand-year world. People in the thousand-year world know about the earth and its people. 6. Conclusion. The thousand-year world is one with truth, goodness, and beauty. It is a world of love, peace, happiness, and the upgraded human nature. Undoubtedly, anyone with perfect human nature can go there because there is no quota.
千年界一瞥，
A glance at the thousand-year world. Xiefeng. Translated by Transin and edited by Care. Mount Butterfly in the Lotus Mountains is breezy and shrouded in mist with wind that soughs through the pines. Flowers spread across the mountainside and vie with each other for glamour. Down to the foot of the mountain, orchards and fields grow aromatic fruits where a clear stream meanders through Cuckoo Valley, past Grace River, and finally joins Ripple Lake. 39 celestials, 22 females, 15 males, and 2 children reside under Mount Butterfly. Not far away, Sakura Island is inhabited by another group of celestials. Crossing over Fragrant Hill and walking along Sesame Slope for about 30 miles, Lush Highland will be found, home to more than 200 celestials. Approximately 300 celestials in total live in these 3 places within 200 miles of each other. Today, after Jade woke up, she dressed in a light blue skirt made of transparent silk and walked out of her house. High in the azure, birds soared over the clouds and silver waterfalls fell from the green of Mount Butterfly in a symphony of nature. In the forecourt, flowers were in bloom, the fullest of which were peach blossoms. Their pink petals were arranged in layers, 18 beige stamens stretched out from the center where bees searched for nectar. Along the stone path and through several rockeries, Jade came to the mulberry garden while holding a willow basket. She was surrounded immediately by a huang and lotus. You must have enjoyed a good sleep last night. Was your lover good? The two joked and chuckled. Jade tried to catch a huang in mock irritation, but the two ran away, so she chased after them. The 3 fairies chased one another while laughing in the garden until Jade caught Lotus and gently pinched on her peachy cheeks. They pinched each other's bodies in fun. A huang kissed Jade's cheek in chaos and asked naughtily, "Is this how your lover kissed you?" The kissed one held a huang in her arms and answered with more kisses on her red lips, "That's it." Having played enough, they began plucking mulberry leaves and returned when the basket was full. Jade was growing silkworms in 3 bamboo baskets of 3 square meters each, with each accommodating about 1,000 silkworms. She distributed mulberry leaves evenly into them. When silkworms climbed up onto the leaves, she would shake the baskets gently, silkworm excrement would leak through the basket bottom, and she would sweep it into a fine wicker dustpan and bury it at the roots of the flowers. Jade was about to rest after feeding her silkworms when she heard someone trotting over. It was the lovely little 6-year-old, Long. He had inherited fine features from his mother, Ray. He gasped, "Aunt, Mom said the melons are ripe. Come and have a taste. Jade replied, I'll go there. Shall we go together? And took Long's tiny hand. They left the courtyard. As they stepped across a bridge over a stream, Long asked, Aunt, grasses are green by the river beneath the bridge. Flowers are blossoming in spring. All beings are as sentient as my beauty, though the world is created in holographic order. What does sentience mean? Jade said, It means that the river, flowers, stars, breeze, melons, birds, and everything else can feel, like your mom and me. Who taught you the lines? Uncle Mock. He and Uncle Benna teach me a lot. Do you want me to recite some? Long began reciting verses immediately. Boundless and infinite, without distance or space, only the holographic order. An inspiration seized by heart. The world is so clear to be understood. Walking and chatting, Jade and Long came to a forest of lush bamboos and fresh shoots. The rustling of bamboos and songs of yellow warblers echoed deeply. It seemed that the forest was little known to the outside world, and only the sound of nature could be heard. Out of bamboo forest, a vast plain extended before their eyes where distant hills dissolved into mist. The breeze was gentle, and the sun was warm. On verdant plain, spotted deer strolled and swans fluttered, heading toward the direction of flute music and dancing where the melon fields laid. Jade paced up with Long. They had nearly arrived when Ray shouted, Jade, hurry up. Today is the Melon Festival. Let's celebrate it. Ray had actually gathered everyone. In addition to 39 fairies from Mount Butterfly, they had 6 guests from Sakura Island and Meta and Kin from Lush Highland. In the field, Ling, Sang, Bar, Moy, Chiron, and Hai were picking melons. They were yellow and green in color, round and plump in shape, and very inviting. While Meta from Lush Highland was dancing and guests were all drawn to her tantalizing moves with her well-curved shape and the flutter of her orange dress. Kin was singing aloud to Meta's dance. Ripe fruits and melons await their harvest, mulberry leaves wait for picking, and Meta in the melon field waits for love. Equals 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 equals. The truth is that Meta was an estrus, and she glowed with youth. Every natural move of her dance was sensual and captivating. Her thick, dark hair, touching eyes, and pink face were perfectly appealing. After the music, everyone ate the sweet and crispy melons. Then Ray announced, Today is special, everyone. Stop building bridges, paving roads, collecting honey, trimming orchards, and making clothes. These melons have been grown for 3 years since I planted the seeds from Peach Village of Birdsong Mountain. Enjoy them. The melons will induce your saliva and refresh you, and their pleasant impression can last for 10 days. In addition, Meta from Lush Highland is looking for her love. Gentlemen, show your best. Ray's words drew great applause. Girls circled and started the mulberry leaf-picking dance while boys performed the bridge dance from within their circle. Kin was at the center of the circle, and he lifted Meta up to sit on his shoulders. The beautiful seeker of love allowed her soft dress to cover Kin's head, and Kin spun around, holding her calves so that she could choose a lover from the crowd. Boys came to court Meta assiduously and implied their strength and tricks by dancing. Standing by the scene, 3 celestials accompanied the dancers with flutes: Pine, River, and Cloud. They were about 800 years old, and the dancing continued until their music ceased. The next game was composing verses. Whoever's verses expressed Meta's feelings best would be the one that she would have. Meta started the game with her verses. Waves run high in the vast lake. Twin peaks rise above the earth. Seeds sprout in a dense forest. But a duet still lacks the other instrument. Sang from Mount Butterfly composed. Sang River flows silently all year long. Snow melts on the high hill. Swans visit the ravine. I play music to build the rainbow bridge. Rice from Sakura Island sang. Rosy clouds appear over the hill, where an exotic flower is up high. Clouds soar with strong wind in the sky. Thundering and lightning dance to climax. Becky from Mount Butterfly said, 1,000-year golden fir is in bud. A fountain in peace is to flow. The surge will reach the depth of the sea. The temple of gods is splendid as a flower. Chiswa from Mount Butterfly stepped forward. He bowed and sang. I row with a paddle across Double Peak Valley. Get wet passing the jungles. Rising hills and streams appear. I find my way back and forth and reach heaven. Raisin from Sakura Island smilingly sang in an unhurried manner. Endless springtime. The plum has blossomed for times to sing merrily and dance gracefully. Even the leafless ironwood can turn the world upside down with its charm. All the guests from Mount Butterfly and Sakura Island, excepting Pine and River, finished their turns. Meta had been limp and soft as a noodle. No one knew who she chose. Ray came to the scene. Ray was more than 600 years old. She was considerate, sophisticated, and respected. She smiled and said, "Jade, take Meta to your room to rest. Everyone else, come to Entertainment Garden. Pine will lecture. Then we will guess riddles, play hide and seek, and tell stories." Everyone headed toward Entertainment Garden delightedly. Ray spoke privately with Sang, Becky, Chiron, Chiswa, and Bong respectively, and then left along with other Celestials. "Here come two flowers. Let's go to the first one." Entertainment Garden. Entertainment Garden had been built up for more than 30,000 years. It has a square in the center, surrounded by 300 stone benches arranged in circles and covered with soft mats. Tree bonsai, rock bonsai, and flower bonsai are placed between them. Around the square is the clear, blue ring lake. Within the lake, grotesque coral reef-like rockeries are embedded with emeralds and mosses. There are also reeds, evergreens, calla lilies, egg bamboo leaves, wandering Jews, aloe, sea onions, hibiscus palms, lotuses, gem flowers, bamboo begonias, scarlet kaffir lilies, variable leafwood, chamomile, fairy pins, and other plants and flowers. All kinds of small fish shuttle in the lake and above them. Mandarin ducks, red-crowned cranes, spotted ducks, gulls, kingfishers, egrets, herons, white-tailed sea carvings, and larks swim or fly. On the periphery of Ring Lake is a flag path beside a garden where thyme, globe amaranths, yulon, bauhinias, forsythias, rhododendrons, pomegranates, banana scrubs, gardenias, jasmines, hibiscus mutabilis, camellia, cymbidium, hyacinth, tulips, violets, vinca, peonia, tuberose, marigold, peonies, and roses are blooming. Outside the garden, hundreds of rockeries with exquisite layouts, upon which creepers, ivy, and night willow herbs are coiled. It's a fun place to play hide and seek. Pine sat upright in the center of the square. His hair was white, but he was in good health with sharp ears and eyes. Male and female celestials sat on stone benches, casually listening to Pine talk about Tao. The universe is boundless while life is evergreen. Modesty and gratitude will perpetuate the water source of life. Follow your heart and gain a tacit understanding. Experience both the ego-absent realm and the ego-involved realm. One should empty their mind before entering the higher-level space. Act in accordance with your nature. Never admire luxury or possess even a needle. Seize the day and always remain vigilant. Mortals suffer a lot because of their possessions. We celestials must never act like them. The 10,000-year world is close at hand. Concentrate on self-cultivation. Never ruin your future. After listening to Pine's preaching for some time, attentively, male and female celestials felt refreshed, energized, pure, and enlightened. The next game was guessing riddles. Hai stood up first and proposed a riddle. Both ends are curved like carrying poles. It is not used for carrying water or rice. It is like a flat ground from east to west. It is always covered with emerald green moss. Bevran from Sakura Island immediately stood up and said, "It is a bridge." Hori, a female celestial, stood up and proposed a riddle. "It is black and dark, and even 18 cattle can't pull it." Silence, a male one, shouted, "It's a cave." Yovan, who looked girlish, stood up smartly, cleared his throat, and proposed a riddle. "There is a unique cave on the hillside. It is usually closed and has a seam. If it is stirred by a peak, the brushes on both sides will drip with water." Hearing the riddle, everyone was stunned at first, but then roared with a laughter that echoed to the clouds. The riddle game lasted for a while longer. After that, they told stories and played hide and seek. Laughter, joy, and happiness abounded. Meta from Lush Highland followed into Jade's bright and spacious room. Her walls, doors, and roof were made of bamboo, and her silk curtains floated in the wind. Outside her rear window was the picturesque land of splendors, where red-crowned cranes dancing trippingly, sweet flowers, and tweeting birds can only be described by one word: beautiful. Several bamboo deck chairs lined her room. Her wide bamboo bed was covered with several layers of mats knitted with fragrant milkweeds as thin as threads. The mats emitted a refreshing fragrance. It was soft and comfortable to lie upon. The pillow made of flexible lotus roots was yellowish and elegant. Jade knew that Meta could not hold it at that moment, so she patted on Meta's plump hips and left. Due to their life structures, women in the thousand-year world generally had no sex lives. Their menstrual cycles were different from those of mortals, only occurring once every 3 months. A few days before their cycles would end were their estrus periods, so they desired intimacy only 3 or 4 times per year. That which flows constantly will form a small murmuring stream, but that which does not will accumulate and become a reservoir. It is quiet when closed, but after the gate opens, waves will surge and uncontrollable billows will dash against the sky that cannot be resisted by self-control. Meta was on the edge of such an explosion at that moment. Men in the thousand-year world were completely different from women. They could display their elegant demeanor at any time and control their lust totally. Without external stimulus, they had no desire, but when teased by women during their estrus, would gallop on the grasslands like runaway wild horses. In addition, Celestials in the thousand-year world enjoyed excellent lifelong health, and thus did not suffer from emotional distress or psychological burdens. There were various recreational and physical activities, so women were soft as cotton, highly energetic, dynamic, and attractive, while men were physically strong, muscular, and powerful, and full of vital essence and vigor. Equals 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 equals. Meta sat on pins and needles and felt anxious. There was an overwhelming potential energy inside her body that was ready to explode but failed to find its outlet. At that very moment of her unbearable thirst, Becky came into view. At the sight of Becky's big, tall, and muscular physique and sparkling eyes, Meta jumped onto him like a hungry tiger. Becky put his arms around Meta's waist and spined his body at his convenience while Meta used her legs to step onto his hips and hooked his waist with her feet. Becky held Meta in his arms tightly. They kissed madly with their lips stuck together like glue. Meanwhile, Meta's middle part made reciprocating motions back and forth like a hungry bird opening its mouth to take food from its mother's throat. Her plump labia and valley were rubbed firmly against his hot love rod. With uncontrollable excitement, after rubbing about 50 times, a stream of clear liquid flowed out of her vulva and nourished her surrounding parts. Just at that moment, Becky squeezed into her temple of God with his penis along her seam flowing with clear liquid. Meta suddenly had a full feeling inside as if her pelvis would split. A current flowed through her body and an unbearable pleasure was beating inside her. Becky held Meta and went to her bedside. Meta was in a supine position on the bed with her feet on the ground while Becky moved rapidly. Meta closed her eyes and ignored the raging wind. Meta felt swelling, limp and numb, pain, smoothness, warmth, fullness, wetness, and energy. It seemed a wonderful electric wave radiated from the center point between her legs to every cell and corner. Meta tightened her body. Her flexible tendons of legs, feet, hands, and other parts were stiff like reinforcing steel bars after an electric shock. The gate had opened and the flood poured out along it. Short of breath, she felt extremely excited and wonderful. It was like flying, a volcanic explosion, and cracking and bursting fireworks. Opening the gate was just a prelude. Becky opened the gate and extinguished his fire, little by little. For Meta, opening the gate was far from enough, and she wanted to drain out the reservoir after months of accumulation. If anything was left, it would be very unbearable for her in the following days. So more wonderful, graceful, unrestrained, Lewd, dissolute, winding, and pleasurable plots were staged with the arrival of Sang, Raisin, Chiron, Chiswa, and Bong one after another. These stories are omitted because mortals cannot morally bear for them to be described. This has only been a limited glimpse of the thousand-year world with its own lifestyle and morals which we cannot imagine. We will experience more detailed scenarios as our thinking deepens, our consciousness improves, and our life structure advances.
万年界
The 10,000-year world. Xiefeng. In the distant space about 58 minutes away from the Earth, the negative universe speed, about 3,480 light-years, there is a beautiful planet, the 10,000-year world. The planet is about 16 times larger than the Earth. It doesn't rotate. Instead, it just moves slowly in the rotary river system. It has 16 small sun satellites surrounding it and hanging in the universe with equal distances among them. These 16 satellites with extremely high density respectively give out light waves with different frequencies, dividing the 10,000-year world into 16 zones with different colors. Each zone has its own feature. The growth ways of its plants and animals, the ecological structure and climate differs from each other. Interestingly, one of its satellites, suns, emits the black light with the heat. The zone it covers is an eternal night. Part of the animals, plants, insects, and stones in this zone has their own different colors. Standing on the mountain in this zone, you can see the mountains, rivers, and skies shining splendidly, just like you are standing on the top of the skyscrapers and enjoying the household lights in the city. On the side of the night zone is the scene of eternal dawns. You can see the charming dawn clouds and the misty horizon producing the mysterious scenes. On the other side is the eternal evening scene. The attractive evening clouds change constantly. Beside the dawn zone is the morning scene. Here the sun is always rising above the horizon. The birds are singing. The morning dews are like crystals. The mountains, forests, and streams are filled with the energy of life. The air is always fresh with fragrance. You cannot help but admire for the scenes from the bottom of the heart and say, how beautiful life is. Across the night zone is the eternal noon with the sun shining all the time, clouds hanging in the sky, comfortable breeze and cool weather, the blossoming flowers, flying birds, fragrant grass and trees, and abundant fruits, looks prosperous and flourishing. In the 10,000-year world, there are numerous rivers and 16 seas having the same size with the Pacific. The crystal-like sea waters, the abrupt mountains, the fairy scenes, the clouds, the old trees, the falls, the streams, the flowers, small lakes and ponds constitute the attractive landscapes. In the lakes, ponds, and streams, you can see the swimming ducks and mandarin ducks, the playing partridges, the dancing cranes and lotus, the swinging watergrass, the jumping frogs, the swirling dragonflies, and the swarming fish, enjoying their life in the nature. There is rainfall in all the territory of the 10,000-year world. However, there is no hail or snow. Sometimes there is thunder, lightning, and wind. The people actually should be called as celestial beings. Living here live a completely different life from the earth people. They are all naked and capable of flying on the clouds. They have no sex life and no concept of marriage. The female celestial beings don't give birth, have no family or clan. The people living in the 1,000-year world build roads, boats, weave cloth and silk. However, the people in the 10,000-year world do not engage in labor. They don't live in the houses. Instead, they live in the hermits' abodes of all kinds. Their main food is the melons and fruit such as pear. In the journey to the east, the monk Tang and his apprentices passed by the Wuzhuang temple of the genuine celestial being at the Mount Wanshou. The fruit they ate there is called the ginseng fruit. The people living in the 10,000-year world drink the stream water. They don't have private property. Apart from the meditation and silent practice, they would go out touring for the attractive scenes. There is no management here. Everything is peaceful, quiet, and elegant. The plants and animals in the 10,000-year world grow even more slowly than those in the 1,000-year world. They blossom every 3,000 years and bear fruit in another 3,000 years. The average life longevity of the celestial beings is 35,000 years. The beards of some elderly celestial beings even touch the ground. The young celestial beings have the delicate skin like lotus. They die in a sitting posture, just as the Buddhists do. After death, their bodies will become a column of light smoke floating away. The living celestial beings will not grieve over the death. The dead celestial beings would go to one of the four worlds. Those who have never had the worldly thought will enter the Elysium world. Those who have had the worldly thought after they die will have the column of smoke gathering and taking form again, starting another cycle of life in the 10,000-year world. Those who have often had the worldly thought will be degraded into the 1,000-year world. Those who have had the worldly thousand and put it into the practice will be degraded to the mortal world. The worldly thought refers to the desire for the power, wealth, family life, sexual intercourse, private property in the mortal world. It also refers to the grief, hatred, and jealousy. The celestial beings in the 10,000-year world look like the descendants of the hybrids between the Eastern and Western people. They are extremely beautiful and handsome. There are no handicapped or ugly people here. Their average height seems to be 180 centimeters. Just like the mortal world, the lady celestial beings are smaller than the male celestial beings. The 10,000-year world can hold more than 10 billion celestial beings. But at present the population there is only a little bit more than 100 million. It is just like the Earth with only 6 million people. So if you can make diligent self-improvement as the Taoists do, you all have a bright future. Those who love their families, the opposite sex, motherland, work, wealth, and position, and those who like watching TV, listening to the radio, surfing the internet, driving the limousines, reading, living in the luxury villas, fighting against the people, heaven or earth are not able to enter the 10,000-year world because there is no such thing there. The process of entering the 10,000-year world is, after the flesh bodies die, the spiritual body, actually your body is complete with all organs and tissues, enters the space tunnel. You feel weightless. Flying on the clouds, you have great pleasure and joy. In less than an hour, the negative universe speed, you will see a colorful life bridge. After getting on the bridge, you will change into a column of smoke and lose your consciousness for the moment. When you come to yourself again, you will resume your body form. Now you have entered the 10,000-year world. The people in the 10,000-year world can clearly remember their former cycle of life, knowing about the 1,000-year world and the mortal world. Some inspirations for those who intend to do self-improvement in the 10,000-year world. For the endless years we must refine ourselves and never seek fame or wealth. Do good deeds every day, you can live longer. Engage in meditation, you will get protection from the celestial beings. The empty space is not empty. The true color is colorless. The intangible is tangible. The yin and yang, and the positive and negative exists in the unity of the opposites. The celestial world is remote, but it can be reached instantly. Eat the sun essence and drink the moon tenet. Do this for long, and you can build your celestial body. Live simple, you get the support from the celestial beings. Live practical, you will reach the Tao. The body is dynamic while the heart is static. Your life is limitless once you ignore the wealth and authority. Believe it or not, the heaven mystery is easy to be known.
极乐界
Elysium world. Xiefeng. The 1,000-year world and the 10,000-year world is part of the positive universe. From the perspective of the materials, they are the objective existence. They can be seen and touched. All the objects in them have life longevity. The Elysium world is part of the negative world, and everything there is fantasy. In the Elysium world, time almost disappears. All the objects exist by nature instead of by the form. Sometimes they, based on their needs, can change into a certain form temporarily. But when they exist by nature, they are eternal. The Elysium world is the Western Elysium world in Buddhism. They are also called the Buddha land and Buddha state. Where is the Elysium world? It just lies in the Earth universe. Then how big is it? It has the same size as the Earth universe, including the micro-universe and macro-universe. We can understand that the Elysium universe is located millions of billions of light years away. And everything around us, including ourselves, is also in the Elysium world. As far as the dream is concerned, the space in the dream is the negative space. So what's the size of the dream of each person? No one can answer this question because the size of the dream world is determined on the dreamer's perception, experience. the degree of spiritual nature, and the thinking ability. The more perception and experience we have, the purer our spiritual nature and the more capable our thinking is, the large size our dream world will have. Some people can see the Buddha, God, sun, and rainbow in their dreams. Some people can fly on the clouds, the thousand-year world, or the 10,000-year world with colors in their dreams. These dreams mean they have very pure spiritual nature. However, some people can never have such dreams in their life. The scenes in the dreams of some people are the same as the real human society because they have low thinking ability. Some people can solve the problems in their dreams that can never be resolved in the reality because they have deeper perception and experience. The Elysium is similar to the dream worlds because they are all the negative spaces. Whether or not we can perceive it and enter it, and how deep we can enter it depend on ourselves. To enter the dream, we rely on our perception, experience, and spiritual nature degree and thinking ability. To enter the Elysium world, we rely on our Buddhist nature, without which we can never do it. Most of the things imagined in our brains are true realities because the human brain is part of the universe. They are the reflections of the universe, just like any cell and blood in the human body can reflect his entire look. The human brains can not only reflect the positive space, but also the negative space. From the perspective of the negative space, the humans cannot imagine the whole look of the universe even if their imagination is extremely rich and vast. Now let's come to the Elysium world. Everything of the Earth universe belongs to the Elysium world. Then can we see the Earth where we live in the Elysium world? My answer is yes and no at the same time. We can because the Earth does exist in the Elysium world. We cannot because the Earth we see from the perspective of the Elysium world is different from what we humans know about the Earth. So can we see the Earth people from the Elysium world? The answer is also yes and no at the same time. We can because of the existence of human beings. We cannot because the people in the Elysium world do not have our looks and appearances. For example, what can we see in the dark night? We can see nothing except the luminous bodies. But does it mean nothing exists in the dark night simply because we cannot see them? No, they do exist. We can't see them because we do not have the ability to see them at night. We can only see the fireflies shining in the night, but we cannot see their entire bodies. Can we say the fireflies have no heads or wings because we can't see them? Definitely not. We can't see the running rats in the field in the dark night, but the owls can. Does it mean the owls have special functions? No. That's because the eyes of the owls have different retina structure from that of the humans. The eyes of many animals look the same as ours, but at night their eyes are shining green. In special circumstances, the objects have special expression forms. In the polar nights and polar light, the human eyes can see nothing, but it doesn't mean nothing exists there. In the Elysium world, the existence form of the Earth and the human beings are different from our realities. In reality, we don't see much difference between the humans. But seen from the Elysium world, the difference between humans is great. Some people almost have no form. Some people show up as a column of dim light. Some people appear as a column of red light. Some people show up in red colors with different height of light columns because the people have different mass or nature. The mass is a spiritual nature which is formed at birth and consolidated in the enduring and persistent belief, or the so-called self-refinery and self-improvement. The long-time self-improvement can change the people's mass. The enduring self-deterioration can also change the people's mass. The existence form of life is various and weird. In each person's bedroom, there are hundreds of millions of lives invisible to us. In the surrounding space, there are thousands of flowing rivers and millions of celestial bodies. Each stone records the time lapse of thousands of years that we can't see. Our brain waves keep emitting the information waves about the health and inner world, which we cannot see either. The ghosts we often talk about are actually the life between the yin and yang worlds, which we cannot see either. The scenes in each one's dream is also invisible to us except the dreamers and people in the dream. Seen from the Elysium world, there is life everywhere in the universe. There is life not only on all the planets but also in the empty space. The life is not only on the land, but also under the land. The life is not only in the air, but also in the vacuum. There is life not only in the warm places, but also in cold weather. There is life on the sun, in the stone, on the light rays, and in the radio waves. The life is everywhere and within life. The Buddha land is remote at the universe end. The Buddha land is near in front of us. To enter the 1,000-year world and the 10,000-year world, we need time and have to pass the space tunnel. To enter the Elysium world, we can get there in an instant and become the Buddha very shortly. Because the density and mass in different zones in the universe and space are different, the 3,000 worlds have been formed. These 3,000 worlds, based on their distance and mutual dependence, are divided into 10 continents, namely Lotus Continent, Borneo Continent, Kasaipa Continent, Ingwu Continent, Amida Buddha Continent, Celestial Islands Continent, the continent for 3 realms lives to pass through, Moon Temple Continent, God's Continent, and Supreme Authentic Wisdom Continent. It is impossible to describe in detail the 3,000 worlds and 10 continents. Till now, human beings have been living for thousands of years. Today, the science has development nanometer and cloning technologies, but it still can't describe the life body of humans, let alone the vast Elysium world. What I can show you is just an outline. The universe, the Earth universe, where we live is just a particulate in the large universe. To pass the space tunnel, we have to walk through the particulate. It will take us 1,860 years, about 5.85 billion and 57 million light years. The particulate is an organic integrity revolving around the heaven world. We call this revolving body as the Law Rotary System, which has over 3,000 rotary river world, the large worlds. Each rotary river world has almost 3,000 milkway systems, the middle worlds. In each milkway system, there are almost 3,000 solar systems, small worlds. Please note that the so-called system is a relatively independent celestial clan. It is not that one sun-like star constitutes a solar system. In some zones, several hundred suns form a solar system. In some solar systems, there are several thousand stars, or even tens of thousands of stars. The Earth is just a member of the solar system of the small worlds, not efficient to constitute a world. From the angle of the Buddha land, we divide the 3,000 large worlds into 10 continents, namely, the 10 Buddha states. Such division is not even division of the Earth universe or based on the number of planets and galaxies. Instead, they are divided according to the features and mass of life, or the level of Buddhism. The Buddha, in common sense, is just a general concept. As a matter of fact, the Buddha has 10 levels of powers. Each level constitutes a continent. There are strict regulations in the 10 continents prohibiting the Buddha from going from one continent to another, just like the Monkey King draws a circle for Mongtang with his Monkey King bar. But we don't have the power to enter that circle. Before coming to the mortal world, Sakyamuni used to live in the Lotus continent. Later, he passed the continent for 3 realms lives to pass through to enter the mortal world. After fulfilling his mission in the mortal world, he was then upgraded to the God's continent. The senior monks in the Buddhism, after dying, will go to the Lotus continent. Hereby, I will explain the 10 continents from the high level to the low level. The lowest level is the Lotus continent, and the highest level is the Supreme Authentic Wisdom continent. Lotus continent. In the eyes of the mortal people, the Lotus continent is an empty world in which there is nothing. In the eyes of the people living in the 1,000-year world, the Lotus continent is a vast sea. In the eyes of the celestial beings living in the 10,000-year world, the Lotus world is a vast world of lotus blossoming on the sea. In the eyes of Buddha, numerous Buddha are sitting on the lotus blossoming. The head of each Buddha is surrounded by a light circle of about 1 meter in diameter, which is called the Buddha light. So the Lotus continent is a world emitting the green Buddha light. Borneo continent. At first view, the Borneo continent is a world of emptiness. Another look, it is a vast plain. Look one more time. It is a world of hills with the same height. On the fourth look, these hills keep changing the forms. They are like the 6-month-old babies playing the small, colorful balls, the coiling dragons, the crouching tigers, the young pine trees swinging in the breeze, or the eagles about to fly into the sky. On the fifth observation, we can see the Buddha sitting in meditation, eyes closed, emitting the blue light from their heads. It is a world of the blue Buddha light. Kasayapa continent. It is the hometown, to the Kasayapa Buddha with stretching mountains and ridges. Each cluster of mountain circles to form an elegant residence. The pavilions and buildings hide in the trees and orchards. The herbs of birds fly in the sky. The rabbits and roe deer run on the fields and in the mountains. The streams flow on the plains with delicate bridges on them. The children play in the yards. The women pick up grapes and pears under the grape trellis or in the orchards. Some of the men eat watermelon in the field. Some play chess in the pavilions or buildings surrounded by bamboos. Some drink wine or tea. Some read poems or play musical instruments, etc. It seems that it is someplace in the mortal world. Actually, all these scenes come from illusion. If you keep looking, you will find the flying birds will alight on the trees and become leaves or fruits. The playing kids will become the blossoming flowers. The chasing animals will become the stones with various forms. The bridges on the rivers will suddenly become the trees. The rivers will become the clouds and mists. The smiling women and men who are playing chess, drinking, reading poems, or playing musical instruments will disappear, and the pavilions and buildings will become hills. All of these are the incarnations of Buddha. Ingwu continent. On the first look, Ingwu continent looks like a rolling air mass, which later grows into a round ball with rough surface. The ball keeps expanding and enlarging. The rough surface gradually forms the mountains, rivers, and lakes. You can see all the animals, plants, and nature on the earth and in the 1,000-year world, 10,000-year world. On the clouds, you can see the temples rising with soft celestial music and bell sounds. Accompanied by the celestial music and bell sounds, the plants, animals, humans, celestial beings, and birds gradually rise and change into the forms of Buddhist monks and nuns flying to their temples. In these temples, the burning incense produces smoke and Buddhist masters give the Buddhism lectures. After the lectures are over, the Buddhist monks and nuns return to the ground and are transformed back to their original forms. The temples in the air disappear slowly. The land contracts and becomes a round ball, which later becomes a rolling air mass. Amida Buddha continent. Seen from the distance, at the end of the horizon there is a bright spot. The circles of colorful halo expand from the bright spot. As we approach nearer, we can find it is a crystal-like transparent planet bigger than the Earth. Through the halo, we can find a splendid palace in the center of the planet. In the middle of the palace, a Buddha who is sitting is Amida Buddha. His body emits the colorful halo like the water ripples, which always runs through the palace, the transparent planet, and gets into the vast universe. The halo even reaches the earth where the humans live, protects and cleanses the life of those with Buddha nature. When people say Amida Buddha and repent, the frequency of the Buddha light complies with that of the human mind. These people can get the protection from the Buddha. This is the so-called Buddha shines everywhere. Celestial Islands continent. Seen from 10,000 light years away, there is a disk, composed of the mist and dust moving slowly. The diameter of the disk is about 300,000 light years. The mists are the flowing heaven river, and the dusts are the planets in the heaven river. These planets have the similar size with the Earth. They float in the heaven river just like the sea islands. The total number of these planets is 80 billion, on 30 billion of which live one Buddha, or the celestial being. That's why it is called the Celestial Islands continent. On the Celestial Islands continent, there are 80 billion islands, and each has a name. The Buddha living on these islands have their own names too. Apart from the 30 billion islands resided by the celestial beings, the other 50 billion islands are still yet to be resided, waiting for the people upgraded into the Buddha from the mortal world, 1,000-year world, and 10,000-year world. Now let's have a look at the Snow Peak Island. On this island, there is a peak with 10 levels. The first level is in the amber color. The second level is in the green color. The third level is in gold. Level 4 to level 10 is in light blue, gray, milk white, purple, red, black, and snow white respectively. Because the top level is shining in snow white, it is called the Snow Peak Mount. On the Snow Peak Island lives a fairy, Buddha, called Yue. One day she succeeded in practicing a fantastic spell and invited some celestial beings to appreciate it. We know that this island is nothing special except the Snow Peak. On the vast, empty and dry land, there is no animal, plant, or human. It is a lonely island producing nothing but loneliness. Then this day, a common stone at the foot of the snow peak moved a little bit and changed into an extremely charming lady, who was Yui Celestial Being, the owner of the Snow Peak Island. She stood up straight and then sat down with her legs crossed. The illuminating fireballs flew from her head and into the sky. We followed one of these fireballs and saw it flying across the vast Heaven River and sea and reaching the Coral Castle Island. It got into the brain of a dolphin which was resting on the beach. The dolphin swung a little bit and changed into a handsome young man, who was called Dolphin Celestial Body, the owner of the Coral Castle Island. He touched her head, smiled and waved to the sea. Then the waves became violent and a flying horse with wings flew from the waves. Dolphin Celestial Being got on the horse and flew towards the Snow Peak Island. On his way, he met the Green Island Flute Buddha riding on a black cow, the Flower Fairy sitting on a lotus from the Flowers Island, the Crane Celestial Being riding on a crane from the Thousand Birds Island, the White Man Buddha riding on a nine-head beast from the 10,000 Beasts Island, and the Gold Wheel Celestial Being riding on the Fire Wind Wheel from the Fire and Wind Island, who were also on their journey to the Snow Peak Island. When they were about to reach the island, they saw thousands of celestial beings in the sky. Some of them were riding the fish, some on the peacock, some on a pinholder, some on a blanket, some on a dog sledge, some on a big leaf, some on the arch bridge made of hundreds of birds, some on the clouds, some on tornado, and some on comet with tails. When reaching the Snow Peak Island, they all descended to the ground and their transport became the colorful cloth on their bodies or walking sticks in their hands. These Buddha and celestial beings have weird appearances. Some are dwarfs, some are tall and strong, some are handsome, some are ugly, some have cold eyes, some have long ears stretching to the shoulders, some have the face of kids but white hair, some have beards touching the ground, some have 3 eyes, some have 18 hands, some have bald heads, and some talk like 6-year-old kids. But the lady celestial beings are pretty and fascinating. On the empty land of the island, there were thousands of celestial beings saying hello to each other. Then all of them turned to Yui Celestial Being to congratulate her on another spell. When everybody was talking happily, a thunder-like voice came from the crowd. Sister Yui, we are all your guests. Do the guests have to stand on the wild field like this? The celestial beings traced the voice and saw a celestial being waving to Yui. He was more than 2 meters tall with rough black hair, red face, and large head. He was the Red Face Buddha, the owner of Black Canyon Island. Yui smiled and said, "Please." She spread her long right sleeve in the air, and there appeared a palace made of red bricks and green tiles in front of them. In the palace, there were many buildings and pavilions connected by dozens of meters of corridors. The celestial beings were amazed and voiced their admiration. Then Yui Celestial Being spread her left sleeve into the sky and said, "Please." Suddenly more than 1,000 kinds of grass, plants and trees such as the bamboo, pear trees, willows, pine trees, berry trees, and redwood grow beside the pavilions and buildings and on the wild fields in the palace. The trees and plants swing in the breeze and give out fragrance. The fruit hangs on the trees. The celestial beings cheered again for the wonder. Then a skinny celestial being with only one eye on the forehead said, "Sister Yui, what do you plan to place in the open space?" Yui giggled and gave a wave into the air with her 2 hands. There appeared a pond in the space. In the middle of the pond there was an artificial hill with water rushing out of the top. The fragrant lotus, swimming swans and mandarin ducks, the jumping goldfish and frogs made scene attractive. Another round of cheers came. Then a barefoot Buddha with big belly and mouth said loudly, "Sister Yui, your spells are excellent. But would you like to serve us something to eat, because we have traveled far to your island?" When saying this, he touched his big belly protruding out of his clothes. The other celestial beings also agreed with him and looked at Yui Celestial Being. Yui gave another smile and jumped on the cloud 10 meters above the ground. She extended her right hand with 5 fingers stretched and pointed to the peach tree beside her. The peaches in the tree were all absorbed into her hands. She closed her hands, threw out the peaches suddenly and said, "Please have a look." The peaches rolled into the crowd and grew larger, turning the delicate and old-fashioned square table and backrest chairs. The celestial beings took their seats happily. Then Yui said loudly, "Attention, please." She blew a mouth of celestial mist covering a pear tree. Moments later, the mist disappeared and the pears began to drop onto the ground, turning into the pretty fairies in colorful silk cloth. Holding fruit plates with strange fruit in their hands, the fairies came to the tables and settled the fruit plates, saying to the celestial beings gently, "Please." Then they turned and stood behind the celestial beings. Before the celestial beings ate the fruit, Yui said loudly for another time, "Please look." She bowed to the pond and clapped her hands. The frogs in the ponds jumped out and turned into the handsome young men in black, holding the long mouth kettle made of the glazed pagoda and amber luminous cups. These young men walked to the tables and poured the wine in the kettle into the luminous cups. The wine shines in the cups with fragrance. The celestial beings admired. "This is the most fragrant wine I have ever smelled. Excellent." Or, "My heart is drunk." Yui, holding one cup in her hand, said, "It is my great honor to have your presence on my island. The wine is specially prepared for my distinguished guests. Cheers." The celestial beings were about to drink when they saw the spiritual light ripples in the cup. At the bottom of the cups something special appeared. Some cups had the swimming goldfish. Some had the little dragon flying. Some had small tortoise moving. Some had seahorse running. Some had starless fish moving. Some had pearl shining. Almost all the sea fish and animals could be seen in the cups. The celestial beings understood that these are the miraculous drug given by Yui. The celestial beings laughed or said thanks to Yui. They raised their cups and drank the wine. The waiters filled their cups again, and the celestial beings drank for another round of cheers. When they were enjoying themselves, a celestial being said loudly, "Yui, we know your spells have almost reached the peak, but can you show something more to us?" The celestial beings followed the voice and saw 8 elderly celestial beings sitting under the grape trees. One of them was a kindly-looking and bald-headed one with long white hair and dragon-head stick. He waved hands to the celestial beings. He was the highly respected empty Buddha from the Infinitude Island in the Elysium world. Out of respect, the celestial beings put down their cups and became quiet. A kid celestial being asked the eagle-nosed celestial being beside him, "You don't know him because you have just come from the 10,000-year world after self-refinery. He is most of the most competent celestial beings in the Celestial Islands continent. His has multiple and wonderful spells. In his eyes, the spells of UE are just the games of the kids. Keep quiet and let's see." UE celestial being, with her hands together, bowed to the empty celestial being and said, "Master Empty, hope you can enjoy my trivial spells." She then shouted to the pond, "Kids, it's time for you to give the dance." Suddenly, the ducks in the pond jumped to the air and became musicians. Some played pipa, some played flute, some played bamboo flute, some played violin, some played drum, and some played hammer. At the same time, the swans in the pond also flew to the cloud and turned into the pretty fairies. In a short moment, the fascinating music began to echo in the air. The fairies began to dance and show their youthful energy and sexy posture. The celestial beings laughed happily. The performance lasted for about 1 hour. Then the fairies and players went back to the pond in the form of swans and ducks. When the celestial beings had enjoyed themselves, they stood up. An elderly lady celestial being, with purple hair on the head, gave a Zen posture, with her palms together, and said to Yui, "Yui's sister, thank you for your hospitality. I want to go back home now because I have to handle some business on my island." The other celestial beings also said, "We will have to leave now. Thank you for much. Next time I will host you on my Sufficient Treasures Island. See you, or see you next time." Then they all rode on their animal vehicles and flew in the sky. Celestial being Yui bade farewell respectfully with her hands joined, looking up in the sky and said, "Thank you for your presence on the Snow Peak Island." When all the celestial beings were not seen in the sky, she waved her right hands and left hands, gave a Zen posture with her palms staying together, and gave out a mouthful of white mist. Suddenly all the buildings, pavilions, trees, flowers, grass, mandarin ducks, and ducks all disappeared. The land returned to the wilderness. She was then transformed into a golden ray, which merged in the snow peak immediately. The continent for three realms lives to pass through. The continent for three realms lives to pass through is a mysterious one. From the perspective of the material world, it cannot be found at all in the universe. The continent is just like a miniature of the Earth universe. That is to say, the Earth universe is the multiplied version of the continent for three realms lives to pass through. However, it is not the plain multiplication because the God of the heaven world going to the continents for inspection, the Buddha or God from the celestial world going to the mortal world for survey or another cycle of life, or the people of the mortal world heading towards the celestial world due to their successful self-refinery have to pass the continent for three realms lives to pass through. Only after entering the space tunnel can we see the outline of the continent for three realms lives to pass through. But it doesn't mean that each person, Buddha, or God who has entered the space tunnel can see its overall outline. In most of the cases, they just pass by the continent. For example, the people of the mortal world who have had the perfect human nature enter the space tunnel after their death. At the end of the space tunnel, they will see a colorful life bridge, the passage to the continent for three realms lives to pass through. After they pass the colorful life bridge, the administration of the continent will, in accordance with their spiritual nature, send them to the thousand-year world just like sending a fax. The people cannot stay in the continent for three realms lives to pass through. If the heaven world decides to send a celestial being to the mortal world to accomplish a mission, they will first summon him or her to the continent for three realms lives to pass through before faxing the celestial being to the mortal world. The continent for three realms lives to pass through is like this in my eyes. After passing the colorful life bridge, we can see a rainbow heaven gate. Looking into the gate, there seems to be a colorful tunnel. After walking into the gate, we can find there are 36 doors along the tunnel standing opposite to each other. At the end of the tunnel is a brilliant radiance. Looking into the first door, I saw the burning fires with the extreme heat. Many people were in the fires crying and moaning, suffering from the scorched skin and flesh, which was really brutal. The angel said to me, "This is the inflaming layer. They are suffering because it's their retribution. All people who had been killing or torturing others have to endure the sufferings here." Seeing into the second door, I found the ice blocks and cold winds inside. Many people were frozen in the ice layers, unable to move or cry. The chilly cold air penetrated their skins and bones, causing severe pain in the body. The angel told me timely, "This is the frozen layer. One good turn deserves Anther. They had done many bad things in the mortal world, and they deserve it. You don't have to show mercy to them." I looked into the third door and was frightened. It was really a horrible world. I saw a man trying all the means to hide himself when numerous monsters, devils, goblins, and ghosts were chasing him. He rushed to a tree and stood against it, trying to hide himself from them. Unexpectedly, the tree stretched out its hairy, bloody, and thin hands in front of his eyes, then towards his neck. He ran away scared and came to a rock, standing against it. Suddenly, he felt someone scratching his back. He looked back and cried, "Oh, my God." A bloody head was on his shoulder with the green eyes looking straight at him. He was so scared that he rushed forward. Nevertheless, the ground where his feet stood cracked and sunk him. He looked down and saw thousands of poisonous snakes and centipedes were gazing him at about a dozen of meters below him. Many snakes began to climb towards him. I got sweated and dared not to see any more. The angel said, "This is the hell world. Those who had domineered and forced people out of their living have to endure the sufferings here after their death. Otherwise, the spirits of the people prosecuted by them would cry in front of the heaven world gate, making a lot of noise and chaos." In the fourth door, I saw many scenes. In one scene there was thunder, lightning, and strong wind. The grass and flowers trembled in the wind, and the trees swung, trying to keep its branches unbroken. In one scene there was scorching sunshine that made the land crack. The trees, grass, and flowers curled in the heat, trying to keep alive. In one scene there was comfortable sunshine and breeze. All things were flourishing. But when I looked carefully, I found the grass, flowers, and trees were suffering human chopping, house treading, sheep and insect biting. In the last scene, there was heavy snow, and the grass and trees were withering. The angel explained, "This is the plant world. The trees, grass, and flowers in the world are transformed from the life in the inflaming layer, frozen layer, and the hell world. In the plant world, they will have leaves, blossom, have fruit, reproduce, and serve the insects, animals, and humans. In their past cycles of life, they had consumed too many natural resources and had done nothing good for the insect world, the animal world, and the human society. So they have to compensate for what they have done in the past in the plant world. In the fifth door, I saw the brutal scene where the law of the jungle was working. Every day, all the animals were afraid of being eaten by other animals. Even those on top of the chain had to be cautious of being attacked by the humans or eaten by the same kind of animals. Meanwhile, they had to suffer from the old age and the enduring death from hunger. The angel said, the people in the mortal world who had been domineering, bullying others, showing no sympathy or mercy, love to fight or rob, and don't sustain their parents would have to enter the animal world after their death and receive the punishment. I walked into the sixth door and saw people riding on the horse, the cows plowing or milking, the donkeys carrying goods, the dogs guarding the house, the cats hunting rats, the hens, ducks, and geese laying eggs, the sheep providing wool, and the pigs supplying meat. The angel explained, all the livestock are providing the most service as they can with the lowest demand. They do so because they had owed others when they were the humans. They had occupied others' property or land, received bribery, cheated others of their wealth with lies or fake goods, or failed to repay the debt. After they died, they would change into the animal husbandry and make compensations in the debtors' homes. I entered the seventh door and saw the scene in the mortal world. The people were noisy on the streets, some were crying and some were laughing. They were restless with nothing in their minds. The angel explained, the mortal world is a transit station between the heaven and the hell. The wise people would engage in self-refinery and self-improvement. After they die, they would enter the heaven world. The unwise people lived with their mind blocked. They just followed the trend and kept breathing. In the next cycle of life, they would become human beings, too. The foolish people spent their days blindly busy, trying to gain things at all costs. But they don't know the loss is gain and the gain is loss. The consequence is that they have overused their fortune and would be downgraded into the lower world. I asked the angel, what behavior makes the best life? The angel answered, the wise life with the behavior of the spiritual nature makes the best. I asked again, what is the wise life, the behavior of the spiritual nature? The angel explained to me, the Jehovah's Witnesses live ordinary family life without lust. They don't engage too much in the worldly grudges and concentrate on the pursuit of the future grace. This is the wise life with the behavior of the spiritual nature. The Buddhist and Taoists refining themselves in the temples also pursue the highest spiritual nature at the lowest demand. They have seen through the vanity of the world and desire the Buddha state. This is also the wise life with the behavior of the spiritual nature. And the Muslims and Christians tolerate the dissidents and behave modestly. This is also the wise life with the behavior of the spiritual nature. Then what about the other people? Does it mean only those who believe the religions can live the wise life with behaviors of spiritual nature? I continued to ask. The angel answered, to live the wise life with behaviors with spiritual nature, the people don't have to believe or join a religion. Those who become religion believers want to listen to the teachings, get into a proper environment, and strengthen belief through some rituals. If they have strong beliefs, they don't have to be confined by the rituals. Indeed, those who will become celestial beings might not think so in their mind, and those with the highest wisdom are often not the religion believers. Do the kings, emperors, ministers, heroes, great people, the rich, the dignitaries, the specialists and scholars in the mortal world live the wise life with the behaviors of spiritual nature? It depends on their heart and behaviors. In general, those who pursue the worldly fame, wealth, position, and welfare are not living the wise life with behavior of spiritual nature. The more they have gained in the mortal world, the less they will reserve in the celestial world, and less probable they will enter the celestial world. What about the common people? Most common people have no time to consider the deep life meaning because they are busy making a living. So their time is engaged in handling the daily affairs. Strictly speaking, their life is no different from that of the busy worms. Due to the shallow perception, it is difficult for them to establish the firm belief. Only a few common people know how to follow their nature, lead a natural life, and keep their mind at peace. If they can be educated properly, they can also live wise life with behavior of spiritual nature. Before I continued my question, the angel said, "You have stayed here too long. I can't explain too much, otherwise I will violate the heaven laws. Please, this is my last question. Can we see the celestial world from the mortal world?" The angel answered, "In general, you can't see the celestial world from the mortal world. Only a few designated people can see it. That's the mirage seen by the people in the mortal world. After that, I made rush visit to the thousand-year world, 10,000-year world, and the Elysium world. In the Elysium world, I visited the cathode black hole body, the heaven world, the zero world, and holographic order world. Upon arriving at the seventh door, the angel pushed me into the door before I knew it. I felt faint and dropped into a black hole with my head down. Gradually, I lost my perception and memory. Moon Temple Continent. This is where the celestial beings listen to the teachings by the Allah, ancestor of the Buddha and Yahweh. God's continent. This is where the God of the celestial world arranges the events for the celestial beings, Buddha. Supreme Authentic Wisdom Continent. This is where the apprentices of the ancestor of Buddha with the highest Buddha nature live. Apart from the above-mentioned thousand-year world, 10,000-year world, the Elysium world, and flaming layer, frozen layer, hell world, plant world, animal world, and livestock world, the other worlds include holographic order world. It refers to the protective outer layer of the Earth universe, just like the eggshell. It seems that it is composed of the high-energy cloud cluster. In the chaos world, once you have understood it, the thinking can enter the state of chaotic thinking, and you can have full perception of complete freedom and the God. At that time, everything you do is right, even if you kill hundreds of people because you have been integrated with Tao. The zero world. It is where the Allah, ancestor of the Buddha and Yahweh, stays. The heaven world. It is the core of the Earth universe and where the God moves about administering the universe. The cathode black hole body. It is the planet with the highest energy in the universe and where the gods violating the heaven laws are imprisoned. The anode black hole body. It is the womb of the females or women. The dream world. It is the negative space entered by the spiritual nature of the life in the subconsciousness. It is the vast space without the existence of time-space. The space reflects the history and current situation of the dreamers. In fact, it mainly reflects the future of the dreamer in metaphors instead of directly. Sometimes the reflection is reverse. All life will have dreams, not only the humans, but also the animals, plants, and celestial beings. The insect world, the world of the insects. The bacteria world, the world of bacteria. The landscape and climate world, the space where the mountains, stones, rivers, and weathers operate. The zero world, heaven world, Elysium world, cathode black hole body, thousand-year world, and 10,000-year are the senior spaces of life. The livestock world, animal world, plant world, hell world, inflamed layer and frozen layer are the junior spaces of life. The holographic order world, anode black hole body, dream world, insect world, bacteria world, and the landscape and climate world are the intermediate world.
灵觉比理性分析更保险。
Spiritual sense is more secure than rational analysis. Xiefeng, December 26, 2020. Translated by Qin Yu and edited by Care. People have six senses: sight, hearing, taste, smell, touch, and spirituality. Their perception and cognition of the material world depend on their five physical senses, while those of the non-material world depend on their final one, their spirituality. For example, the past and the future, heaven and hell, the physiological field and inner activities of others, and future good or bad luck cannot be recognized and perceived by their physical senses, but only by their spiritual perception and recognition. Perception and cognition of the future can be based on rational analysis, but that is extremely unreliable because it depends on pre-existing knowledge. While knowledge comes from the summary of practical experiences in life, the teachings of predecessors, and from books by way of the physical senses, these things have their limitations. Past experiences can never solve the difficulties and predicaments faced in the present and future. Furthermore, historical experiences are mostly distorted records, many of which might even have been fabricated based on limited clues, such as the abdications of Yao, Shun, and Yu, that people have always admired in Chinese history. Perhaps it was not at all as it was recorded in Sima Qian's historical records. It is useless to use unreliable knowledge and experiences to analyze and speculate on future scenarios, and the conclusions drawn by logical inferences from questionable things must also be considered unreliable. For example, if we want to know the value of a book before we read it, it is unreliable to rely on other people's introductions and recommendations. The most reliable way is to roll up the book and then touch the center of it with the palm of your hand to feel it. If what you feel in the palm of your hand is a blast of warmth, then this book will definitely be of value to you. But if you feel a current of cold air, then it will not be. Not only is it worthless, but it might also be harmful. Spiritual perception is like testing the value of something with the palm of your hand against a closed book. This method is simple and effective because the palm of your hand will not deceive you, whereas other people's introductions and recommendations can and may. The same is true when dealing with people. For example, if someone wants to add you to their social media contacts, then his or her first sentence, their small picture or video, or an article sent by them will tell you everything that you need to know. This depends on your spiritual sense. If you feel comfortable and refreshed, then you should approve this person. But if you feel uncomfortable and unpleasant, or dark and dim, then they should probably be denied. When dealing with people, it is best to capture their first telepathy. If you feel good, then you should associate with them. But if you feel bad, then please stop immediately. Once you have dealt with people for a long time, you will develop rational analyses and cognitive judgments. At that time, cut, it won't sever. Sort, it become messier. It is your troubling woe and an unspeakable taste fills your heart. Whether it is for a person, a theory, a religion, a political party, or a country, it is more effective to use spiritual perception and understanding. For the future, spiritual perception is more accurate. From this point of view, it is better to read fewer bad books and hear fewer bad words. The more messy knowledge and information that you know, the more spiritually insensitive you will be.
万年借一瞥，
A glance at the 10,000-year world. Xiefeng, February 7th, 2008, Chinese New Year's Eve. Translation edited by Qinyo. The misty waves extending into the distance, the blue waves stretching boundlessly, the clouds displaying 10,000s postures, and the thousands of sandy islets flush with color. These are the abundant scenes of the vast Zongting Sea, dreamlike and illusory with its silver sandy beach clean and wide, winding and stretching. The Mayun Mountains tower against the sea, with overlapping peaks and endless stretches. Its main peak, Tongtian Peak, is 90,000 meters above sea level, tall and steep, majestic above the clouds. On the top of the peak, there is a sky-gazing cliff with a wide and flat ridge, about 2,000 square meters. Standing on the sky-gazing cliff, you have a wide field of vision. Looking up, observing the sun, moon, and stars, witnessing the position changing of the stars. Looking down, you can see the sea of clouds and surging billows, the beautiful mountains and rivers. Looking far into the distance, the haze is gorgeous, magnificent, and boundless, and you feel soothed and relaxed. Looking closely, the mountains are verdant with layers of emerald green. The silver waterfalls are flying and gurgling and make people feel refreshing. The sky-gazing cliff is the most famous scenic spot in the 10,000-year world. Celestials with profound cultivation bases often fly here to absorb the essence of heaven and earth. They cultivate their sentiments, discuss sutra and Tao, and learn from others' strong points. Of the 100 million celestials in the 10,000-year world, only 8,000 of them can reach this place. The rest all cannot. Why? Because to get here you must rely on flying, and climbing is impossible, because there are no branches to climb and no roads to go. Celestials who arrive in the 10,000-year world for the first time do not have the ability to fly and must walk on the ground. Only after about 10,000 years of self-improvement can they fly 3 feet above the ground, and only after 20,000 years of self-cultivation can they fly above the lofty mountains and high ranges. To fly at an altitude of 80,000 meters requires 30,000 years of self-cultivation. Zigui, Danjing, Biyao, Xiaoxia, Hanliang, Sangqing, Ishi, and Qintong are the 8 celestials who reside in Foaming Ridge of the Hualing Mountains. The ridge is 30,000 kilometers away from Tongtian Peak. Today, all 8 celestials have cultivated their ability to fly up to 80,000 meters high. They exchanged smiles and then they soared into the sky, gradually rising to 10,000 meters in the air. They then flew along the Hualing Mountains. The mountains slid away behind them, and the winding rivers disappeared one by one. Layers and lumps of clouds and mists receded one after another. The feeling of flying is so wonderful and comfortable. Breaking through the three-dimensional time and space and entering the four-dimensional time and space feels like breaking free from a cage and being free and graceful. Words fail to capture the experience. Zigui exclaimed, 10,000 years within the cocoon, transforming flesh and bone, and once emerged as a butterfly soaring high. Without the connection with the divine, akin to double wings, how could we ride the rainbow today? Biao echoed. After countless body training sessions, my spirit becomes awakened. Through spiritual cultivation, I am able to absorb invisible energy. Embryonic breathing is activated, revealing itself as a mystical power bestowed by the greatest creator. Han Liang also felt an urge and said, for 30,000 years of building the foundation, refining the essence, transforming qi and the spirit, perfecting the structure to be in one with the Tao, begin realizing how profound Tao is. After flying for about 10,000 kilometers, the Hualing Mountains finally vanished behind them, and an endless vast grassland lay ahead. This is the most famous Marj Sangqing grassland in the 10,000-year world. Here, horses gallop, herds of deer relax, antelopes frisk, bison gallop, zebras play, camels lie idly, goshawks circle vigorously, gulls spread their wings freely, cranes and storks pose grandly, skylarks sing and dance, trumpet vines bloom all over the field, and meadow lilies, the landscape like stars. Red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, and violet blend together, resembling colorful pearls embedded in the green grassland. The blue sky, clean air, gentle breeze, and warm sunshine create a poetic and vibrant scene. Danjing was so happy she lost track of time. She let go of her voice and sang, beautiful Marj Sangqing, you are the garden of life. You are like a charming fairy. Make me look forward to for so long, wandering on your vast chest, bathed in the flowery scenery of love. I want to throw myself into your arms and suck the fragrance of your tenderness to my heart's content. Listening to the song of Danjing, everyone couldn't help but land on the grassland. The 4 female celestials Zigui, Biyao, Xiaoxia, and Ishi danced a rainbow dance on the green grass. The 4 female celestials are all about 1.76 meters tall, neither fat nor thin, with faces like peach blossoms, eyebrows like crescent moons, bright eyes and white teeth, cherry red lips, black hair like flowing clouds, heart-shaped chins, ruddy skin, long arms and legs, high breasts, waists like weeping willows, plump buttocks, and beautiful and curvy figures. While glancing, their eyes convey emotions and captivate the soul. While dancing, they are exceedingly charming and enchanting. Their supple bodies are like tender willow branches in spring. Their tenderness flows like waterfalls. They are over 30,000 years old but look like young girls in love. With profound Taoist cultivation, they behave like young maidens. Like buds just blooming, like flames burning, every movement is akin to goddesses scattering flowers, and their waist twists resemble dragons flying and phoenixes dancing. As the celestials of the 10,000-year world are all naked, their dance postures are particularly captivating, leaving endless afterthoughts, and every posture emits energy, presenting the delightful serenity of seclusion. The 4 male celestials, Danjing, Hanliang, Sangqing, and Qiantong gradually enter the wonderland while admiring the dance, kneeling on the ground and shedding tears of gratitude, as if riding the clouds and fog to the palace of bliss, or like a quiet and cold pool, motionless, with strands of energy swirling in their bodies. Waves of joy overwhelm every cell, beyond words. Come and chase me. Come and catch me. A clear and melodious shout and the subsequent laughter resounded on the grassland from far to near. Zigue and others stopped dancing and shaded their eyes with their hands and saw 6 beams of white light on the horizon in the distance, approaching like lightning. Han Liang opened his throat and made a trumpet shape with his hands and shouted, "Hey, please come here." Suddenly 6 beams of white light flew to them. It turned out to be 2 female celestials and 4 male celestials. The leading one was a female celestial named Saying, followed by Dama, Sola, Jeffon, Naji, and Sijia. When seeing the 8 celestials such as Zigue and others, Saying was overjoyed. She circled around the 8 celestials like a whirlwind, giggling and asking, "Who are you? How did you come to this Marge Sangqing grassland?" Zigue took the lead in responding. "We come from Foaming Ridge of Hualing Mountain and are heading to Tongtian Peak of Mayan Mountain. When we passed by here and saw the picturesque scenery, we couldn't help but stop and be captivated. Brothers and sisters, what are you all doing here?" Upon learning that the 8 celestials were heading to Tongtian Peak, Sighing and the others realized that they had already attained the highest level of oneness with Tao achievable by a celestial in the 10,000-year world. A good karma was hard to find. Naji replied promptly, "We are 6 celestials from the Taiji Palace in Shaoxiang Ridge, Tiandan Mountain, which is 200 miles away from here at the end of the grassland. Today we came out to practice flying on the grasslands. Currently, we can only fly 8 feet above the ground. We are fortunate to meet esteemed celestials like you today. We hope you will stay at the Taiji Palace for a few days and impart your celestial teachings to us." As soon as Sighing finished speaking, she grabbed Zigue's hand and exclaimed, "You must come with us. You must." Zigue cast a loving glance at everyone and had already ascended 8 feet into the air, flying forward arm in arm with Sighing. The rest of the celestials joyfully took flight and followed suit. In the blink of an eye, 14 male and female celestial beings had already flown to the foot of Tiandan Mountain. Flying forward for 60 miles along the mountain's base, they arrived at Shaoxiang Ridge. Here clouds billowed and steamed, the purple mist lingering, the mountain flowers blooming, the fruits fragrant, and the clear stream rushing. 100 kinds of birds playing and chasing among the branches in the forest. The sound of water, the wind, the swaying of the branches, and the graceful chirping of the birds merged into a symphony of heaven. Landing from the clouds, the celestials walked slowly up along a mountain path. Along the path, they saw little squirrels jumping among the branches, koala bears hugging the tree trunk and tilting their heads to watch, long-tailed monkeys hanging upside down on the branches and swinging, and elk drinking water leisurely in the mountain stream. After a while, the celestials came to Taiji Palace. Stood outside the gate of Taiji Palace, the breeze is gentle, cool, and refreshing. The scenery is beautiful, which nourishes the heart and pleases the eyes. The Taiji Palace is back to Shaoxiang Mountain, facing the Natsong River, with the winding Tiandan Mountains on the left and the Ingshao Pool on the right surrounded by mountains. It is truly a geomantic treasure land with the vermilion bird to the front, the black tortoise to the back, the azure dragon to the left, and the white tiger to the right. Especially the Natsong River, which is like a white-silver chain meandering and floating on the opposite vast Yuniryuan plain, like a dragon moving vigorously, like a silver bridge hanging on the river. Sangqing couldn't help but praise sincerely. Auspicious scene Shaoxiang Ridge, geomantic treasure Taiji Palace, created by nature with extremely fine craftsmanship, blissful sensations arise on this fairyland. Everyone, please enter the Taiji Palace and rest for a while. Sijia greeted courteously. Zigue and others entered the Taiji Palace one after another. One could see that the Taiji Palace was as bright as day, and the 8 treasures of splendor glittered with soft light. There were 8 cushions in the center of the palace, which were placed according to the 8 directions of Qian, Kuan, Sun, Dui, Jin, Zhan, Li, Can, which are not only a place to rest, but also a place to practice. It turned out that there were also 8 male and female celestials living in this Taiji palace. Besides Saiying, Dama, Sola, Jeffon, Naji, Sijia, there are also Kunhi and Bairue. Looking at the expressions in the eyes of Zigue and the others, sensitive Dama immediately cleared their doubts. Kunhi and Bairue went to explore the mysterious gorge, and they will be back in a few days. The 8 treasures of splendor mentioned above consist of sunlight diamond, jadeite blue, agate jade, amethyst glaze, emerald, cat's eye yellow, olive red, and crystal rock. People who have read The 10,000-Year World know that the 10,000-year world is 16 times larger than the Earth, and there are 16 stars of different densities arranged equidistantly in the sky, which divides the 10,000-year world into 16 zones with different luminosity. One of the zones is the Dark Night Zone, which is eternal night, and it is precisely this dark night zones that accommodates countless kinds of gemstones in various forms, and is shining in the dark night. Therefore, all the celestials of the 10,000-year world will come here to collect and carry gems in this zone to decorate the caves where they live. The gems can not only illuminate the caves, but also be absorbed essence from, and make the caves colorful and dreamy. The flight of more than 10,000 kilometers drained the vitality of Zigue and the other 7 celestials, necessitating an urgent replenishment of energy. Sighing and the other 5 celestials also felt fatigued. The 4 celestials Sola, Jiefan, Naji, and Sijia walked out of the cave and picked some delicious peaches, delicate grapes, sweet melons, and moist stamens soon after. They presented these fruits respectfully to Zigue and the other 7 celestials. Zigue and the others looked at the melons and fruits and smiled. You can use it. We only need 8 cushions for a while. It turns out that the food of the celestials in the 10,000-year world varies according to the depth of their cultivation. Celestials who have just arrived need to eat hard fruits such as walnuts and dates, while those who have been there for over 10,000 years can eat soft fruits such as peaches and grapes. Celestials that are more than 20,000 years old do not eat fruits but only drink mineral-rich mountain spring water, while celestials over 30,000 years old no longer eat any tangible substances, but directly absorb the brilliance of the sun and moon and the vital energy of heaven and earth. While sighing, Dama, Swola, Jeffon, Naji, and Sijiao were eating fruits. They watched carefully as the 8 celestials took their seats on the cushions, in accordance with the 8 trigrams directions. The 4 male celestials Danjing, Hanliang, Sangqin, and Changtong sit on the location of Qian, Li, Sun, and Jin, and the 4 female celestials Zigue, Biao, Xiaoxia, and Ishi sit on the direction of Dui, Jian, Kan, and Kuan. They were all sitting cross-legged with their left and right feet overlapped, and the female celestials folded their hands below their navel, while the male celestials slightly bend his palms, placing them lightly on their knees with palms facing up. With their eyes and mouth closed, attention fixed, and breath regulated, they entered the state of fetal aspiration, looking like a sculpture. Internally, following their mind's guidance, a stream of essential qi entered their governing vessel through their Baihui, Sishinkang acupoints, going through and absorbed by the large intestine meridian of the hand Yangming, the small intestine meridian of the hand Taiyang, the triple energizer meridian of the hand Shaoyang, the stomach meridian of the foot Yangming, the bladder meridian of the foot Taiyang, and the gallbladder meridian of the foot Shaoyang, and the impure qi was expelled from their Shangyang, Shaochong, Jian, and Zitanga acupoints. Another stream of essential qi flowed from their Huin and Yongquan acupoints into their conception vessel, absorbing the essence and energy through the hand Tianlung meridian, hand Shaoyin heart meridian, hand Juin pericardium meridian, foot Tian spleen meridian, foot Shaoyin kidney meridian, and foot Juin liver meridian, and expelling impure qi from their Zhongchong, Shaoshang, Yinbai, etc. acupoints. At this moment, the energy from the confluence of the conception and governor vessel, Ren and Du meridians, converged and spouted from the 4 acupoints of Haiquan, Juchuan, Yuyue, and Jinjin, filling their mouths with saliva. The saliva continuously flowed through their esophagus into their abdomen, and in a short while, their dantian was filled with energy, their fatigue was gone, their spirit reappeared, and their light of nature was complete. The eight celestials slowly opened their eyes, slightly parted their lips, deeply and slowly inhaled, then exhaled slowly, smiled, and stood up from the cushions. Sighing, Dama, Swola, Jeffon, Naji, and Sijia watched closely, understanding the principle that eating chi makes one deity-like. Zigue and the other seven celestials then explained in detail the principles and methods of eating chi. After a few days, the eight celestials bid farewell to Sighing, Dama, Swola, Jeffon, Naji, and Sijia, and ascended into the air from the Taiji Palace Gate, flying towards the Tongtian Peak in the Mayan Mountains. They flew over the Bixiao Mountains, the Yuhua Mountains, the 800-mile Xiobua Lake, the 900-mile Seifiaqui Plain, the celestial Fascinated Gorge, the Valley of 10,000 Birds, the surging Blue Nephrite River, and the Double Ocean River, and arrived at Qingdao Lake, which spans over 160,000 hectares, approximately 10,000 kilometers away from Tongtian Peak. The expansive lake, seen from high altitude, resembled a blue curtain adorned with emerald pearls, offering beautiful scenery with crystal clear, soft, shimmering waves, and presenting diverse and auspicious postures. Meanwhile, on an island called Coral Bamboo, 16 celestial beings were observed practicing walking on the lake's surface. Zigue and the others visited Coral Bamboo Island and demonstrated and explained the key points of walking on the water to the other celestials. Due to space limitations, the scene and plot are omitted. On this day, the eight celestials flew to the Pure Bath Garden, which is only 100 kilometers away from the Tongtian Peak. It is the holiest place in the 10,000 years world, where peculiar avoidance of vulgarism trees grow, magical psychic flowers bloom, and magical upward flowing springs flow. The purple air on the ground is steaming, especially in a small and serene pool. Its temperature changes wonderfully. It is sometimes scalding hot, sometimes bone-chilling, sometimes spewing, and sometimes quiet. Only those who have practiced for more than 30,000 years can enter the pure bath garden, the holy place. Those who have not cultivated enough will feel a strong repulsive force when they come to the edge of the garden and will feel restless and uncomfortable all over. Those who have cultivated enough will feel a strong pulling force when they come to the edge of the garden and will feel calm and refreshed, and their energy will increase significantly. Therefore, any celestial who wants to fly to the Tongtian Peak must come here to verify their own cultivation. Only those who can enter the pure bath garden can fly to the Tongtian Peak. The eight celestials came to the pure bath garden, feeling completely relaxed and happy. They felt a pulling force on them and then smoothly entered it, details omitted. They bathed in the sacred pool, and after the bath, they thoroughly remolded and emitted an exotic fragrance. This fragrance was like sandalwood, tuberose, musk, jasmine, rose, geranium, cinnamon, lavender, but it was none of them. It penetrated the heart and lungs, drunk one's innermost, connect divinities, opened Buddha eyes, lighten one's bones, and enhance their energy. The eight celestials bathed in this fragrance and suddenly felt light and drifted straight up to 80,000 meters high, as if they were clouds blown by the wind, if not guided by intention. The eight celestials wanted to go to Tongtian Peak, so in the blink of an eye, they had already floated to the sky-gazing cliff of Tongtian Peak. The sky-gazing cliff is a place where countless senior celestials rainbow over the ages. In the sky above the sky-gazing cliff, there is a pyramid tower made up of nearly 10,000 stars and planets. The tower is where universal energy converges and radiates onto the sky-gazing cliff. Being at the sky-gazing cliff, one can feel the energy overflowing throughout the body, incomparably comfortable. When the energy they absorbed is enough, the structure of their lifts undergoes a sudden mutation, and their Buddha eyes open, being able to see the mysteries of the universe. It is at this moment that many celestials who came to the sky-gazing cliff began to rainbow. Their entire body will transform into a green smoke and disperse, while the light of nature of their life will turn into a rainbow of 7 colors and fly toward the continent for 3 realms' lives to pass through at a lightning speed, and then go to other heavenly worlds. The 8 celestials, Zigue, Danjing, Biyao, Xiaoxia, Hanliang, Sangqing, Ishi, and Qiantong, arrived at the sky-gazing cliff, as if they were in a void. They saw the blue waves of the Tsangting Sea are boundless and connecting the horizon, and the lofty Mayun mountain range extending far into the sky. And on the sky-gazing cliff, nearly 100 senior celestials had already arrived and were holding their breaths, concentrating, and receiving energy from the pyramid tower. Just as they were watching without knowing what to do, a celestial elder named Greeting Celestial appeared. He was specifically responsible for guiding the male and female celestials who flew to the sky-gazing cliff on how to absorb energy from the pyramid tower and then rainbow. The communication between the 8 celestials and the Greeting Celestial was not through language, but through symbols and telepathy, truly a same mind sensing each other. The 8 celestials quickly entered the state according to the guidance of the celestial elder. After an unknown amount of time, perhaps a moment, perhaps hundreds of years, when Danjing, Sangqing, and Ishi came back to their senses, Zigui, Biyao, Xiaoxia, Hanliang, and Qintong had disappeared. It turned out that the 5 celestials had already rainbowed and disappeared without a trace, while the remaining 3 still needed to continue cultivating in the 10,000-year world for some time. They were not worried and, following the guidance of the celestial elder, they flew to the Fairy Garden Canyon, where the ginseng fruit grows. To find out whether Danjing, Sangqing, and Ishi ate the ginseng fruit in the Fairy Garden Canyon and how they continued to cultivate, especially the cultivation of male-female dual cultivation without physical contact, interested readers can refer to a second glance at the 10,000-year world. Note, the one day and time mentioned in this article are purely for the sake of convenience in narration. In reality, the 10,000-year world does not have such a time concept. Please understand. 千年界2P. Another glance at the 1,000-year world. Xiefeng. January 18, 2010. Translation edited by Chinyo. Lush Highlands male celestial kin and female celestial meta came to Butterfly Peak of Lotus Mountain to live with 29 other celestials. This is a tradition that has formed in the 1,000-year world, with frequent personnel movement. The 1,000-year world is 10 times larger than the Earth, with nearly 2 million villages. The most populous village has about 300 people, while the least has nearly 30. The population of each village is not fixed but transient. In other words, after Kin and Meta came to Butterfly Peak, they would not return to Lush Highland, but instead stay to live on Butterfly Peak. Meanwhile, Hai and Hori, the 2 female celestials living on Butterfly Peak, have been there for more than 20 years. After having discussed with Ray, decided to go to 7 Fragrances Garden of Crane Ridge, on Cloud-Piercing Mountain Range, which is 150 kilometers away. The Cloud-Piercing Mountain Range is one of the 5 continuous mountain ranges in the 1,000-year world, starting from the Silver Wave Sea, lake, and ending at the Bean River. It stretches for more than 80,000 kilometers, with the highest peak, Qingtian Peak, about 43,000 meters high. It is the highest peak in the 1,000-year world. Crane Ridge is a mountain ridge in the middle of the Cloud-Piercing Mountain Range. On this ridge, peaks are layered and colored clouds swirl around them. The area covers more than 120 square kilometers, with mountains within mountains and peaks on top of peaks. It is tall and steep, with a variety of shapes, and the mist and clouds linger, creating endless charm. Crane Ridge is close to the vastest Yuetsong Lake in the 1,000-year world. Cranes often gather here to eat and play before flying to Crane Ridge to roost. Therefore, this ridge is called Crane Ridge. 7 Fragrances Garden is a village under Crane Ridge. There are 7 fragrances here, the first from Pearl Stone, the second from Heavenly Fragrance Grass, the third from Lechuaman Flower, the fourth from Purple Osmanthus Tree, the fifth from Heart Penetrating Springs, the sixth from Longevity Fruit, and the 7th from Fragrant Winds. These 7 fragrances are continuously emitted throughout the year, nourishing the appearance, spirit, heart, and body. On this day, Hai, who was wearing a green silk dress and was slender and beautiful at over 360 years old, and Hori, who was wearing a yellow long dress and was plump and charming at over 450 years old, came to the farewell bridge with a small bundle containing a set of spare clothes. All the celestials from Butterfly Peak, including Kin and Meta, gathered at the farewell bridge to bid them farewell. Because this kind of separation in the 1,000-year world is almost forever, it is difficult to reunite after parting. So everyone was reluctant to part, hugging each other with tears in their eyes. Hai choked and said, 300 miles away. I must reluctantly part with my loved ones. We have been in love for 20 years, and our love will forever be engraved in my heart. Hori wept and said, for 20 years we have been together, our affection and cherished memories shining brightly. As we depart for Seven Fragrances Garden, I can only meet you in my dreams. Handsome sang, representing all male celestials of Butterfly Peak, held high in Hori's hands and tearfully said, we recall the many lingering moments and boundless love we've shared. As we part, leaving behind the empty pavilion, when will we meet again? Our affection is like a range of mountains, and our love is like water within water. We can only often look at the swallows flying back and forth, comforting our yearning for one another. Stunning Jiaoyu, representing all the female celestials, embraced Hai and Hori, weeping and saying, our sisterly bond runs deep, and our love and joy were once so warm and delightful. With each passing year, the mountains remain verdant, and the seasons change. Though we part, our blessings will be with you every day. As celestials were reluctant to part and Hai and Hori were struggling to leave, Ray put on a brave face and sang a farewell song. Do not grieve or linger, for everywhere beyond the horizon, green grass and blue skies abound. Amidst thousands of rivers and mountains, there are always our love. Joys and sorrows all have great value. Do not shed a tear. Please embark on your journey. Your reputation precedes you throughout the world, and your loved ones from afar await your arrival. Do not miss out on the bright opportunities that lie ahead. After that, Ray gently pushed Hai and Hori forward, and the male and female celestials bid them farewell with tears in their eyes. Hai and Hori, with their eyes blurred with tears, turned back at every step, gradually becoming more and more distant. As Hai and Hori walked past the melon garden, over the stone bridge, through the meadow, up the fragrant grassy slope, and into the mulberry grove, they continued to wave goodbye. Until Hai and Hori's figures disappeared into the forest of mulberry trees, they just left the farewell bridge silently. This is exactly. Throughout history, the pain of separation has always been felt deeply by those in love, yet it is affection that brings both joy and sorrow. After traversing the mulberry forest, they reached an open field blanketed with low-lying flowers and grasses, resembling a grassland. The area was adorned with Stipa grandis, rhododendrons, boxwoods, sand junipers, prostrate junipers, forsythia, primroses, roses, brambles, jasmines, sand willows, yellow thorn plums, lilacs, flowering plums, cherry blossoms, Lamius chinensis, rough grass, fennel beans, wild peas, sea buckthorns, icegrass, bupleurum, astragalus, wormwood, silver roses, thyme, pale purple delphiniums, bright red morning star lilies, clusters of pink phoenix hair, sand ginseng with funnel-like flowers, sword, leaved iris with small purple flowers, threadleaf coreopsis with small yellow flowers, and more, all in full bloom, delighting the eye and refreshing the soul. The anticipation of meeting nearly 300 male and female celestials at Seven Fragrances Garden swept away any lingering sadness from Hai and Hori's previous parting. They happily danced like two little girls or two large butterflies. They ran, twirled, shouted, and cheered, carrying their small bundles as they traversed the open field. After a while, they arrived at a small stream originating from Lotus Mountain. They followed the clear and flowing stream for about a whole day on Earth until they saw Grace River, which sparkled and flowed gently. The two celestials were a bit tired, so they sat on the green stones by the stream and rested for a while. After a short break, they felt a bit hungry, so they started looking for food around them. Near the stream, there was a sparse forest. When they came to the forest, they found several chestnut trees. The chestnuts were hanging from the branches. Many of the shells had cracked open, revealing the golden chestnuts inside. They were easy to pick, and the two celestials peeled and ate more than 10 of them, feeling slightly full. After quenching their thirst by cupping their hands to drink water from the stream, they felt refreshed and continued their journey forward. Here, I need to mention that when Hai and Hori departed from Butterfly Peak, they didn't bring anything with them except for a set of clean clothes. Why? Because there was food everywhere in the thousand-year world. Fruits produced by plants were abundant and could be found everywhere. 8 treasure ginseng, flower bud milk fruit, drunken heart leaves, sand lotus, and 3 fairy melons. Because the food was abundant in the thousand-year world and the ripening period of the fruits was long. For example, if peaches on earth were not picked or eaten within a few days after they were ripe, they would rot. However, the fruits in the thousand-year world would not rot for about half a year after they were ripe and would still be fresh. Therefore, there was abundant food everywhere in the thousand-year world, and one did not need to worry about not having anything to eat. 8 treasure ginseng, flower bud milk fruit, drunken heart leaves, sand lotus, and 3 fairy melons. Because the food was abundant in the thousand-year world and the ripening period of the fruits was long. For example, if peaches on earth were not picked or eaten within a few days after they were ripe, they would rot. However, the fruits in the thousand-year world would not rot for about half a year after they were ripe and would still be fresh. Therefore, there was abundant food everywhere in the thousand-year world, and one did not need to worry about not having anything to eat. Furthermore, there are no carnivorous animals in the thousand-year world, such as tigers, leopards, jackals, or wolves. There are no crocodiles, poisonous snakes, spiders, scorpions, centipedes, mosquitoes, or flies that can harm people. Therefore, no matter where you live or go, it is very safe. Also, the thousand-year world is basically at a constant temperature, with no strong winds, heavy rain, or nighttime. So there is no need to prepare extra warm or cool clothing. Unexpectedly to humans on Earth, the celestial beings of the thousand-year world can go without sleep for 7 to 8 consecutive days when necessary. It's similar to some migratory birds on Earth like the Arctic tern, blackpoll warbler, European white stork, New Zealand long-tailed cuckoo, and the seagulls of the Isle of Man, who can fly continuously for several days without resting during their long-distance migration. The special climate, environment, diet, and lifestyle of the thousand-year world have created a unique physiological structure for the celestial beings, just like how women in the thousand-year world have their menstrual cycle every 3 to 4 months, Earth time, instead of once a month like on Earth. Therefore, Hai and Hori, on their way from Butterfly Peak to Seven Fragrances Garden, which is 150 kilometers away, did not need to stay at hotels or dine at restaurants along the way. Hai and Hori followed a stream and arrived at the Grace River because the stream flowed into it. The Grace River originates from the Kasirmaya Mountains, flows into the Ripple Lake, and has a total length of over 23,000 kilometers. It is wide and clear, with a gentle current. Hai said to Hori, "Sister, the terrain ahead seems rugged and difficult to walk on. Shall we take the water route?" Hori readily agreed, "Okay, my dear sister." So, the two celestials began to swim down the river. In the thousand-year world, there are 10 big rivers and numerous lakes and around 100,000 small rivers, so the male and female celestials all have been swimming since childhood and are all skilled swimmers. Their clothes are mainly made of silk, thin as cicada wings, so Hai and Hori didn't take off their clothes, only wrapped their small bundle around their waist, and entered the Grace River to drift downstream. It was like drifting clouds driven by the wind, and they felt as if they were being caressed by thousands of hands. The green hills on both sides raced behind them, and several rows of white egrets flew over their heads. The two celestials played in the water like fish, and in half a day, they had already swum out more than 30 miles. The Red Plateau was not far ahead, and Hai suggested, "Sister, let's get ashore and walk on the Red Plateau, and let's grab something to eat along the way." Hori happily agreed, "I'll do whatever my dear sister says." Two celestials landed on shore and wrung out the water from their bundles with their hands. They climbed up the red clay slope and reached the top of the hill, where they had a broad view of the wild and magnificent scenery. There were forests of Altingia chinensis, alpine pine, larch, longleaf pine, blue pine, hemlock, cold fir, spruce, unicorn leaves, lipstick plant, highland oak, birch, alder, poplar, and cypress, among which were bushes such as small artemisia, purple needlegrass, sand-binding grass, camelthorn, fruit-bearing ephedra, Sympegma regelii, tumbleweed, sand needlegrass, bush cinquefoil, sheep fescue, alpine knotweed, rhododendron shrubs, club moss, red sand willow, roundhead smartweed, Chinese. Pearly everlasting, Chinese cinquefoil, dark brown sedge, marsh marigold, kidney-leaved groundsel, cushion catmint, time-leaved sandwort, fairies snow, snow lotus flower, shining needlegrass, saxaul, great burnet, and other plants. Pheasants, ring-necked pheasants, yellow pheasants, peacocks, chakar partridge, parrots, collared doves, quails, and other birds are running around among them. As they wandered through this diverse flora, they kept an eye out for raspberries and eventually found a few bright, translucent red fruits. They stood next to the small bush and picked and ate them. After finishing, they continued their winding journey through the sparsely wooded mountain slope. Unaware of how long they had been walking, they eventually crossed the Red Plateau and entered the Sangnagir grassland. The Sangnagir grassland was vast, covering an area of more than 200 square kilometers. After crossing the grassland and a canyon, they were close to Crane Ridge, which was equivalent to arriving at Seven Fragrances Garden. Hori said, "Sister, I'm a little tired. Let's rest here for a while." Looking a little exhausted. "Okay, let me hold you and lie down for a while," replied Hai. The two celestial sisters lay down on the soft grassland, and Hori snuggled up to Hai, facing each other. After a while, they fell asleep. Clip-clop. The sound of horse hooves approached closer and closer. Hai and Hori woke up at the same time, sat up, and looked around. They saw four horses galloping a few hundred meters away. One chestnut red, one black, one pure white, and one black and white. Each horse was ridden by a handsome man who was racing and chasing. Hai and Hori stood up quickly, waved their arms, and shouted, "Hey! Hey! Hey!" The horsemen heard the shouting and galloped towards Hai and Hori. They arrived in the blink of an eye and circled around Hai and Hori. Then, the four men dismounted, and one of them named Dayu eagerly asked, "Where are you two from? Where are you going? What are your names? Do you need our help?" Hai excitedly replied, "My name is Hai, and her name is Hori. We came from the Butterfly Peak and Lotus Mountain, and we are going to Seven Fragrances Garden. How about you? Where are you from?" One of the four, Dayue, added, "We are from Seven Fragrances Garden. He is Raji, Gaxiu, Fubo, and I am Dayue. We are racing horses. Welcome to stay in Seven Fragrances Garden." Raji said, "Fubo and I will go and inform all the Celestials in Seven Fragrances Garden that you have arrived. Gaxiu and Daiwa will take care of you too." After saying that, Raji and Fubo mounted their horses and galloped away in a flash. Everyone watched Raji and Fubo disappear, and the sharp-featured and well-built Dua couldn't help but say to Hai and Hori, "Welcome to Seven Fragrances Garden, two celestial sisters. I am Dayue, and I warmly welcome you. I would like to be a swift horse for you to ride, and a spring pool for you to bathe in." Gaxiu, with a handsome and graceful face, couldn't wait to flatter and said, "Brother is born for younger sister, and I will fulfill her every wish. From now on, we will gather at the Seven Fragrances Garden, and I will serve you under your skirt every day." Hai affectionately touched Gaxia's face and said with a smile, "The little baby is so obedient. After we arrive at the Seven Fragrances Garden, I will give you a chance every day to wash my fragrant feet." As she spoke, she laughed merrily. Hori asked Dayue with a smile, "Are you a good boy? If you are, then you can lie down and smell my feet under my skirt." Dayue immediately knelt in front of Hori and tried to smell her feet. Hori pulled him up and kissed his forehead affectionately and said, "You are really a good boy. From now on, sister will give you a chance every day to wash my butt." She burst into laughter, and Gaxiu and Dayue also joined in laughter. Their relaxed and pleasant laughter echoed across the Sangnagir grassland. The sky and the earth were so vast and pure, and nature was so harmonious and auspicious. It was beautiful. Before Hori finished laughing, clever Dayue picked her up and placed her on the red horse. He handed her the reins and climbed onto the horse behind her. Gaxiu followed suit and lifted Hai onto the black horse. The four of them slowly rode towards the Seven Fragrances Garden. Colorful clouds float above Crane Ridge, and phoenixes grace the Seven Fragrances Garden. Auspiciousness permeates the celestial realm, promising everlasting happiness, sang Dayue energetically. Ascend into the vibrant clouds and behold, the thousand-year world, our homeland, lies all around. Graceful in body and mind, our souls soar freely. We offer thanks to heaven, earth, and the greatest creator, Hori sang in harmony. Clouds flying, water flowing, celestial cranes dancing, and flowers exuding fragrance. Brothers lead sisters back to their homeland, hearts and spirits intoxicated with joy. The melody of happiness resounds throughout the journey, Gaxiu sang along. Light steps, minds and bodies brimming with vitality. It's akin to a dream, entering a fantasy realm, where green mountains and clear waters harmonize, waves gently ripple, and mandarin ducks frolic. Every corner of the homeland teems with delight, Hai joined in the song. As they walked, conversed, and sang, they soon departed the Sangnagir grasslands, reaching the wind-singing canyon. Towering rocks and peaks adorned the canyon, while exotic flowers bloomed in profusion. Every breeze produced a melodious resonance, echoing through the valley. The winding path ahead was challenging, prompting Dayue's suggestion to let the horses run. Hori and Hai tightened their grips on the reins, urging the chestnut red and black horses, resembling fairy tale creatures, to gallop. Dayue and Gaxiu embraced Hori and Hai tightly from behind. The rhythmic movement and the warmth of their embrace stirred a sense of relaxation and comfort, signaling the onset of estrus. Amidst this enchanting ambience reminiscent of an impending storm, the four celestials remained silent, not knowing how much time had passed until they emerged from the canyon, spotting a group of horses galloping toward them. It was Raji and Fubo, leading villagers from Seven Fragrances Garden to greet them. "Hey, we're here," Dayue shouted loudly, and the two horses carried the four celestials forward to meet the group of celestials. When they were still more than 100 meters away from the horse herd, Raji, who was sitting on a pure white horse, shouted loudly, "Everyone, line up to welcome them." The group of celestials shook their reins, and instantly more than 30 horses formed a line in a formation. The chestnut red and black horses, with Dayue, Hori, and Gaxiu riding them, rushed to the front of the line. They lifted their hooves, approached, neighed a few times, and then stopped. It could be heard, the group of celestials shouting in unison, "Welcome the distant celestials to Seven Fragrances Garden." Hori and Hai, sitting on their horses, bent down and clasped fists to salute everyone, saying, "Thank you all for coming to meet us. We greet and salute all the brothers and sisters of Seven Fragrances Garden." "Let's go," Raji shouted, leading the way towards Seven Fragrances Garden, and the others followed suit. The horses Hai and Hori rode were among the group, and everyone rode together in high spirits and excitement, arriving at Seven Fragrances Garden in no time. Seven Fragrances Garden is located at the foot of Crane Ridge in the cloud-piercing mountains. Nearly 300 celestial mansions were built along the mountainside, with peach and apricot fairy trees mixed in between, surrounded by exotic flowers and plants. The sunny and beautiful scenery is adorned with auspicious signs and a warm atmosphere brought by hundreds of birds. Everyone gathered around Hai and Hori and arrived at the welcome Celestial's Garden of Seven Fragrances Garden. They served up the delicious liquor-nourishing juice of the thousand-year world, picked the unique 8 treasures ginseng fruit and flower buds milk fruit of the thousand-year world. The respected Beijian of Seven Fragrances Garden welcomed them and said, "Thanks to the greatest creator for his kindness, and for bestowing the arrival of Hai and Hori at Seven Fragrances Garden. To express our welcome to Hai and Hori, we will hold entertainment activities for 3 days, with the following projects. 1. Singing and dancing in the welcome Celestial's Garden. 2. Visiting Crane Ridge together. 3. Boating in the Lake Bay. 4. Poetry competition in the Hundred Fruits Orchard. 5. Exhibition of skills and craftsmanship. 6. Performance in the Joyful Square. 7. Guessing riddles and telling stories. 8. Sermon in Sublimation Garden. Now, let Dayue and Gaxiu take Hai and Hori to their respective celestial mansions to rest for a while, and then everyone can gather at the welcome celestial garden to sing and dance with joy. It should be noted that not long ago, 2 male celestials, Mutin and Sijia, and 2 female celestials, Yuyao and Chini, left Seven Fragrances Garden to live in Gourd Island, 300 kilometers away. The celestial mansions where Hori and Hai will reside in Seven Fragrances Garden are the places where Yu Yao and Chini used to live. Dayue led Hori, and Gaxiu led Hai. The four celestial girls of Seven Fragrances Garden, Budi, Sualon, Ilong, and Weijia, accompanied them to the heart-penetrating spring. The heart-penetrating spring is located in the embrace of Seven Star Rock and is a hot spring in Seven Fragrances Garden. The water of the spring is clear and pure, and the temperature of the water is suitable. The water vapor emits a fantastic fragrance. The spring looks like a small mirror lake. There is a thick layer of clean sand around the spring, and the bottom of the spring is covered with colorful pebbles. From the edge to the center, it gradually deepens, and the central part of the spring is several meters deep, which can accommodate 40 to 50 celestials bathing at the same time. The 8 celestials came to the edge of the spring, and Budi and Sualon took care of Hori, while Ilong and Weijia helped Hai. The 6 celestial girls stripped naked and walked into the lake. They played in the water for a while before standing at the edge of the water. At this time, Dayue and Gaxiu respectively picked several green fragrant leaves, which are wide and soft, supple and strong, like a bath towel used for bathing in the mortal world. Dayue and Gaxiu handed a few pieces of green fragrant leaves to Budi, Sualon, Ilong, and Weijia respectively. Then the 4 fairies gently washed Hori and Hai's bodies respectively. Dayue and Gaxiu sat on the sandy beach by the spring lake, enjoying the graceful and charming figures of the 6 celestial girls. A wave of warm and happy feelings overflowed throughout their bodies. Hori and Hai were being touched all over by the 4 celestial girls, along with being hugged by Dayue and Gaxiu while riding on horseback on their way to Seven Fragrances Garden. The bouncing and friction of the horseback against their genitals sparks an unusual sense of youthful restlessness. Hori and Hai gradually became hot. This sensation served as a prelude to the impending eruption of the 4-month-long pent-up youthful surge within their bodies. After their baths, Budi and Sualon escorted Hori to Yu Yao's former celestial mansion, while Ilong and Weijia led Hai to Chini's previous dwelling. Yu Yao's celestial abode rested upon a flat expanse halfway up Crane Ridge, surrounded by lush green bamboo, fragrant blossoms, and the melodious chirping of birds. The scenery was breathtaking, the space bright and expansive. Standing within the courtyard offered a panoramic view, truly refreshing to the spirit. Upon entering the room, Hori was greeted by a fragrant ambience, immaculately clean and pristine. Light blue silk curtains swayed gently in the breeze, while a large bamboo bed was adorned with fragrant grass mats. The lotus root pillow, in a soothing milky yellow, were just the right blend of softness and support. At the foot of the bed, a neatly arranged quilt made from celestial petals awaited, while a bamboo tea table before the bamboo lounge chairs held an array of unique fruits exclusive to the thousand-year world. These fruits, including milk juice pomelo, nourishing orchid, 5 fragrance orange, 8 treasure ginseng, flower bud fruit milk, drunken heart leaves, sand lotus root, and 3 fairy melon, were handpicked by a dozen celestial beings such as Raji, Fubo, and others, as a gesture of hospitality during Hori and Hai's bath at the heart-penetrating spring. Hori indulged in some milk juice from the pomelo and a few bites of flower bud fruit before retiring to bed. Budi and Sualon tenderly tucked her in, gently caressing and patting her until she drifted off to sleep, singing and dancing in the welcome celestial garden. Hori and Hai awoke refreshed and invigorated, already awaited by Budi and Sualon in the small courtyard, while Ilong and Weijia had kept watch for Hai in her room. After grooming themselves, they each savored a bamboo cup of nourishing juice prepared by the female celestials, a blend of honey, sweet spring water, green fragrant leaves, 100 flower stamens, energy stones, 8 treasure ginseng, longevity roots, wolfberries, red dates, and fairy fruit. This elixir, reminiscent of both wine and juice, left them feeling clear-headed and revitalized. They also enjoyed some 3 fairy melons before making their way through the winding paths of the forest and flower trails to the welcome celestial garden. This enchanting garden resembled a miniature basin, surrounded by gradually rising terrain with a flat expanse in the center. ideal for accommodating the 300 celestial beings who could sing and dance simultaneously. As Hori and Hai entered the garden, nearly 300 residents of Seven Fragrances Garden were already seated, eagerly anticipating their arrival. Upon seeing them, everyone stood up and shouted in unison, "Hori and Hai are great." The whole venue erupted with joyful cheers, vibrant and lively, as if celebrating a festival. The singing and dancing welcome party was hosted by the talented female celestial Ya Yao and the male celestial Yejuan of Seven Fragrances Garden. Ya Yao, over 400 years old, possessed a graceful figure and beauty akin to a super celestial being. Her body boasted elegant curves, and her demeanor exuded charm. With a lively and flirtatious personality, she was adored by all the celestial beings of Seven Fragrances Garden. Yejuan, over 300 years old, sported thick eyebrows and large eyes, along with fine, tender skin and a well-proportioned physique. His features were distinct, and his voice resonated powerfully when he spoke. His dancing was as fluid as water, as enchanting as magic, and as ethereal as a fairy's. His personality was rough yet refined and delicate, particularly in the expressive depths of his eyes, which held a myriad of emotions and infinite allure, capable of captivating the hearts and souls of others. Yao took the lead with a voice as clear as a silver bell. Hai and Hori have descended to earth, and Seven Fragrances Garden is aglow with radiance. All celestial beings will showcase songs and dances to express our gratitude to the greatest creator for orchestrating such a splendid event. 1,000 miles of mountains and rivers brimming with joy, 10,000 miles of sky